guys, how you going? So today on BK Sport, we are back here for another tier maker. It's going to be a rocking time because fun fact for everyone, we're doing the second rowers today. And that's the video that hasn't come out yet. There's always been a problem with second rowers every single year. We smack out the front rowers. We smack out every single position. And the person we have on today is a veteran of the team maker positional game. We've done it for 3 straight years now, 4 videos, but 3 straight years now. And no, it's going to be a good time. Obviously, we are here with the random stats guy. How we doing, man?
Hey, mate, thanks for having me back on. Favorite time of the year, spending 3-4 hours with you, running through every single second rower in the game and rating them from elite to basically not that great. So really excited to go through, hoping that we get through here with no Wi-Fi issues. We don't get into too many fights either over which positions Titans players should be going or Cowboys positions going. Really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it.
Absolutely, man. Well, because we usually do, I think we usually smack out the front rowers, and which is, I think there's actually more front rowers this year. So it's actually good that we're doing second rowers because it might give us, 5 minutes off instead of 5 hours. We'll be doing it for 4 hours and 55 minutes. But yeah, no, it's always a great time, and I love getting into these tier makers because it just really gets your mind back into it. You start to really think about rugby league again. Obviously, the preseason's getting underway now, and you're starting to rock on. But obviously, Rando, let everyone know kind of what you do in the community so people can, follow you ahead of the rugby league season coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. So as by name by nature, random stats guy, basically producing the most random stats you can find predominantly on the NRL, absolutely looking to branch out at the moment. We're looking to look into the AFL, rugby union, tennis, cricket, whatever's really on and people are watching, provide random stats for you. And everyone loves that sort of stuff. On top of that, podcast city, work with Natty from the Weekly Rubdown. We do a Chase Your Losses betting podcast, also on About Even with Hello Sport as well. So as you know, stats and betting does sometimes come hand in hand. And most of the time, as the merch suggests, stats do not lie either. Except when Alex Johnson doesn't score after scoring 20 tries in the last 10 games. But other than that, we've got some merch and really exciting on top of everything, something that you're a part of as well, BK Sport, is that we are doing that charity match, which will be really exciting on February as well. So plenty of stuff going on with the rando stats and hoping to get the stats out to people so they can see and have a bit of rando vision when approaching games for fantasy as well. So that will just be looking at players against players, different meters and stuff and points determined on player and player basis. So that's something exciting in the works, hopefully up and running by season start.
Yeah, man, Kane has. And yeah, that charity match, obviously, you used to play a bit of SG ball and whatnot. I think it was the Rabbitohs, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Matt's an SG ball with the Bears and then was lucky enough to have a few games playing for the Rabbitohs for their high performance unit with the likes of Cam Murray, Keen, Koloamatangi, Campbell Graham. So definitely got a bit of experience. But, I have no idea what to expect come the 3rd of Feb.
Mr. Rando, we're going to be here for the next couple of hours. So I reckon we start knuckling down to these players and really, guys, you can see how many players are in front of us. Actually, I think that when I grabbed them all, there's like 86 players or something around that kind of around that mark. So there's a lot of players to get through here, guys. So obviously hit that thumbs up button, subscribe if you're new around here. One thing that I'll say, if you're a player and you're watching this and you get put not that great and whatnot, don't take it offensively. Just understand that we have to obviously compare with the rest of the, colleagues. We have to compare with other players and whatnot. We're not saying that you're not way better than us. You're 100 times better than us. However, comparatively to other of the players, we just don't think you're at that level yet. So motivate from it, punch on through and prove us wrong. Happy to be proven wrong. And for the listeners as well and for people watching, please go into the comment section. Let us know if you disagree with us. Happy to hear your different opinions because at the end of the day, this is our opinion. But Rando, you ready to go?
Yep, let's do it.
All right, let's punch on. First up, Angus Crichton here from the Sydney Roosters. I'll let you take the floor here first because I know who's coming up right after this. What are your thoughts on Angus Crichton?
Yeah, really lackluster season for Angus Crichton this year after the great heights. Obviously a World Cup winner in 2022. Also was playing Origin at the same time. He's kind of dropped off the fence big time, obviously with a bit of personal issues affecting his performance on the field. We saw him come off the bench 10 times and play second row 3 times. In that, just wasn't hitting the same meters. He was actually more effective off the bench, believe it or not, because he only averaged 30 meters and 6 runs when he started, and he played 16 more minutes when he did start. Off the bench, though, we kind of saw the Angus Crichton of old. He was averaging 83 meters, 10 runs per game as well, and also high up on the tackles compared to the average. Just before I kick that off and the different averages and stuff like that, what we look for in a starting second rower here is 11, statistically at least, they average 11 runs per game, average around 95 meters per game, and make 31 tackles. So that's what the average starting second rower did in 2023. They also played 72 minutes of footy as well on the field. So when I'm going and looking at all these stats and comparing it against the average, just keep in mind 11 runs, 31 tackles. That is the average we're trying to look for in terms of impact on the field. Angus just a little bit lower there. Happy to sit him at do the job. I think he may have been quality last year when we were still talking about him then. Happy to do the job. This season, particularly, not that great, but I'm happy to meet in the middle.
Yeah, I think for me, man, Angus Crichton obviously has been in quality before, and he has actually probably previously been an elite in some of his really big kind of years, but that was a few years ago now. And yes, as we did mention, he has had those off-field issues and whatnot. But, at the end of the day, I don't think he's in not that great. I do think that he's in do the job, and I was thinking he more than likely will drop down towards that back end of do the job, just simply because we do know that he has that quality in him, but it has been that significant drop-off. And yes, he did play for Australia in the World Cup, so I don't think that he can have 1 year and then us just completely give up on him, right? So I think that we'll put him into do the job, right?
Yep, sounds good.
Bingo. All right. We now move into Beau Fermor here for the Gold Coast Titans, a guy who unfortunately had a big-time injury going into 2023. There was massive talk that he was going to make his Queensland debut. Obviously, he was a part of the Queensland Origin squad in 2022 when he had a massive, massive year for the Titans, even though the club was, obviously struggling. Bowie comes back off his injury now, and under Desi Hasler is looking like it's going to be a big year with him and Davey Fifita in that back row. Obviously when he was playing back in 2022, he was really reaching the big-time heights. But what do you think about Beau Fermor, man? Obviously, we do have to consider the fact that he's coming off an injury, but he's also come off an injury before of the same nature, like an ACL, and still had that 2022 season. So despite that injury, he knows how to come back from it, and I'm also really confident that he does bounce back from it well.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the return of Beau Fermor this year. I think we hyped him up real hard last year. He had 116 average meters. The tackle efficiency was his best, 92, and even made 745 tackles, which was around that 32 tackle mark around that average side. Line breaks wise, 10 line breaks that whole season, which is a lot for a second rower. I know that because the most per season, or the average per season last season was 3 line breaks. So he had 10 line breaks last season alone. And he really filled in that spot for David Fifita as well. So we can't really look past him. Obviously, you could drop him down to do the job, but he didn't play a game last year. So can we just keep him in quality? I'd have him on the back end of quality at least. But definitely one of the players I'm looking forward to see in 2024. Because when these players do their ACLs at the start of the season, you just completely forget about them. And Beau Fermor was dead set. Almost, he would definitely have started or at least been on the bench for Queensland this season had he have been fit to play. So I think we got to have a 2022 mind here and keep him in quality.
Yeah, and I think that if it was his first time big injury, right, coming into 2023 when he had the injury, if that was his first time, I would have said, well, it's a really hard one to keep him into quality just because we don't know how he'll come back. But he has come back from that before. Obviously, you said back into quality. I'm pretty happy to do that as well. Obviously, he's first and last right now in quality because he's the second guy. But Yeah, look, I'm definitely still happy to keep him into quality because he is such an attacking weapon. Can drop a ball here and there, but at the end of the day, you just don't really notice that kind of part of his game because of how much of an attacking weapon he is. So we'll throw him into quality, and I'm definitely not going to argue with that because obviously he is a Gold Coast Titan. All right, let's move now into Ben Condon from Manly. What are your thoughts on Ben?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of those players who still hasn't really kicked off in his career, former Cowboy, of course, played 4 games off the interchange bench for Manly, averaging around 20 minutes. Still managed to have a bit of impact in there, averaging 6 runs per game, and making about 10 tackles. Unfortunately, with his limited experience, I'd keep him that not that great. He has been in the NRL a couple of seasons now, so I think he does escape that unproven category. So yeah, I put him in that not that great part for Benny, but still 6 runs in 20 minutes and also making 10 tackles, averaging 50 meters per game. Pretty impressive off the bench, especially when you look at that average time spent on the field.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd put him into not that great category. I just don't think he has a great deal of, you're not able to really see a great deal of opportunity for him. There are better players out there that we can see from. And yeah, I think that it would look really weird to put Ben Condon in the same category as Angus Crichton, for example, which, but I guess that comes down to reputation as well. But yeah, we'll put him into not that great, but motivate from him then and just do better in 2024. Okay, we now move on to the Dragons, and it's Ben Masila, whose name has been around for quite some time, to be honest with you. Obviously, has had some really good moments, but he is coming towards the back end of his career now. Are you looking, because look, he does still give it a solid crack, but I do think that I'd probably be putting him into the not that great category.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to agree with you on this one. Between the second row and the interchange places, he is below average across all statistics. He averages about 38 minutes when he's coming off the bench, 70 minutes, which is a lot when he starts, averaging about 7 runs, 25 tackles as he starts, 6 runs and 18 tackles off the bench. So all stats below average for me. So statistically, I do see him not that great, but I do see him ahead of Ben Condon.
Yeah, that's where I put him onto the board just then. Usually, like I try to, because obviously we go for so long, I try to have a bit of fun with it and put him into a place and then wait for you to say, or wait for the creator to say where they are. And usually it actually ends up being the exact same, which is quite funny, which is really good. So we're usually always on the same kind of wavelength. But yeah, I had Benny Murdoch-Masila at the top end of not that great. I guess that comes down to his experience as well, comparatively to Condon. He has been around the game for quite some time. All right, we go into another Manly play here, and it is one of the Trbojevic brothers. It is Ben Trbojevic, a guy who, you definitely can't put him into improve anymore. He's played a couple of years now, and it's kind of mixed between centre, back row, and whatnot. Look, does Benny Trbojevic do the job? Like, is he the guy that gets the job done there? Maybe, but I just don't know comparatively to the guys that we're going to see here. Like, if he is into the job, he would, for me, be at the lower end. But with that being said, I think he probably still does the job. What do you say?
Yeah, I've got him in not that great, just below Ben Murdoch-Masila. He just doesn't average enough time on the field, unfortunately. 21 minutes off the bench. He played 8 games, averaged about 5 runs per game, under 50 meters per game. So just not making that impact statistically. And same with when he starts, he's also averaging around that 6 runs per game. 71 meters though, in that 43-minute stint.
Is that
But
as a
then
second rower though,
tackles.
or is it as a centre?
Starting as a second rower. So
okay, yeah.
Still a bit below that starting row objective. In saying that, yeah, he's a rising star. He's still got a few seasons up his belt. He did play more games this year. He made the exact same tackles as last year. 1 more line break, scored the exact same tries. It was basically on par with last year, to be honest. But yeah, I still just think statistically, I'd have to drag him down from do the job. And as you mentioned at the start of the podcast, when we say not that great, doesn't mean that he is a terrible player. We're not saying that at all. We just don't think with the caliber of players we've got in the do the job category that he kind of matches that fold.
Well, it's like with an award ceremony, right? Like you're going to see the best of the best come out there, but you're not going to see everybody there, right? So at the end of the day, there is a ranking system, and there is going to be better players and better, people in the workforce, realistically, who just receive awards. So it kind of gives you that motivation to hopefully one day want to be that Dally M, like a Nico Hines or like a Nathan Cleary kind of deal. Actually, has Nathan Cleary won the Dally M before?
No, he hasn't. I don't think.
Wow.
I think maybe next year could be his chance with a lot more players starting to drop out of that Penrith side and soaking up points. But it's pretty tough for a player to win with a team like that around him, soaking up all the daily end points.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. But all right, there we go. I think we've done enough there on betting Trbojevic. And I think another thing that's hard with Ben is that he does have that Trbojevic last name. So you do kind of his brothers, even though you don't want that, your brothers kind of do come in line with you just because of that last name. And you kind of start to think, oh, maybe they are higher because it is aligned with Jake and Tom, but no, not so much. So I agree with you. I think that he probably does go into that not that great category. But we'll leave him there. All right, let's move now into Ben Lovett from the Rabbitohs, a guy that I don't really know a great deal about here. So I'd be inclined to be putting him to unproven. Do you have much knowledge of Benny Lovett?
Yeah, obviously his debut season this year, he played one game at second row for 80 minutes, averaged about he did make 9 runs, 94 run meters, and 30 tackles, which is a great stint for a starting second rower. You love to see those stats against them. Obviously, below the starting second row average, but nonetheless, first game starting at second row, really positive numbers there. I've got him in that unproven category. I think he played two others off the bench, averaging about 22 minutes, 4 runs, 11 tackles. So, I think unproven for Ben Lovett, but definitely will upgrade him. I think we're going to see a lot more of him this year, coming off the bench, predominantly, of course, behind the likes of Jai Arrow, Keon Kaloamatangi. But if he does get his shot, keep an eye on him on fantasy because he does put in a bit of impact when he does start.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, because obviously, Keon Kaloamatangi will be out probably with New South Wales, and then you've also got Jai Arrow out with Queensland. So that's definitely a great opportunity here for him to, get into that back row spot and really prove himself throughout that origin period. But yeah, I think unproven is just as simple as that one game. And, best of luck in 2024. Next up, we go to the Cronulla Sharkies, Billy Burns, another guy that I don't think many people will really know about. I feel like I've heard his name for a couple of years now, but do you have anything on Billy?
Yeah, absolutely, Billy. I think he had a really good underrated season with the Dragons, and now he's moving over to the Cronulla Sharks. It's an exciting chapter for him. So I think he'll really flourish underneath Craig Fitzgibbon there as a back rower himself. He averaged about 78 minutes when he did start at second row, 98 run meters, which is above the average. 10.9 runs per game, which is right on the average, but 35 tackles as well. Absolute machine in defense. I mean, he was a Dragons player, probably had to make a lot of tackles off the back of those errors, but he's also up in the tackle breaks, also up in the try scoring category. He's been slowly moving along. He's also from the Panthers originally as well, so we've got to think about that. He's come through that system. He's a quality player, has now got the opportunity at a quality team to show himself. Not saying, I know I'm using the buzzword quality here, not saying he should be quality. I think he's probably top of that, not that great system. I'd have him there. I'd have him almost in the do the job, but he definitely had a pretty underrated season at the Dragons, and not many people were talking about the great Billy Burns.
Yeah, I think that it's really like when you're comparing with the other players, it is in between that real bottom area of do the job and the real, like the top of not that great. And that's why it's a bit hard because you don't really want to put him next to not that great, but that's probably the category comparatively with other players that you'd probably lean towards. But with that being said, as you said, underrated season compared with those stats, right? So I personally believe you'd probably put him at the top of not that great. Would you disagree with that?
No, I think that's exactly where I'd have him. I mean, his couple of seasons previous have been pretty lackluster.
Underwhelming, yeah.
Underwhelming. I didn't get much game. He only played 4 games last year, to be fair. But the season before that, he had a pretty average season as well, not really doing too much there. He actually averaged 30 more meters per game this year compared to his next best. So he's definitely on the up. He's definitely got the stocks going up for him. So it'd be good to see next season where we put him. I think he could get into the do the job category, if not higher. He's definitely got a bit of a ceiling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think that the Sharkies back rowers spots are completely locked up. I think Briton Nikora obviously has locked up his Sharky spot in the back row, but I do think that Teague Wilton, obviously, there's still a little bit to be seen. We'll talk about him a little bit later on. So, Billy can obviously work his way into the team. We look forward to seeing him do that. Next up here, we go into Brandon Tumeth of the Tigers. I think this is just a pretty straight up unproven.
Yeah, absolutely. Only one game for Brandon last season off the bench, 34 minutes, 3 runs, 17 tackles, which is about average for someone off the bench. So, yeah, I'm happy to drop him into the unproven one to keep an eye on in 2024.
Yeah, and I put him below Lovett there just because obviously I do think the stats probably lean more towards Lovett over Tumeth in that one game. But with that being said, it's unproven. Yeah. We really don't know much just yet, so we're looking forward to seeing it. All right, we go into the Brisbane Broncos now, and it is Brendan Piakura, who has been, really knocking on the door for quite a bit now. I think he got some Cook Island rep in the World Cup potentially. What are your thoughts on Brendan Piakura?
Yeah, he did really well when he stepped up into the second row for the Broncos. He averaged about 78 minutes. He had 11 runs. He made 112 meters per game. That's 10 plus meters per run on average, 42 post-contact meters, which is higher than the average second rower starting, and 3.8 tackle breaks, which are one of the highest we've seen there as well. So a bit unstoppable when he has the ball in attack. In defense, he's a bit less hands-on in defense, 25 tackles on average and 10 off the bench as well. Considering he mainly comes off the bench and he's not always starting, I'd probably put him higher than Billy Burns on that not that great category, but definitely is a player to watch as he gets more game time and potentially more opportunity with Kurt Capewell off from the side. He might be something really to consider because his attack numbers are really good when he does start. So that's something to keep in mind for.
Well, that's what I was going to. That's what's going to kind of have a bit of a bite back at. I think maybe Bottomender did the job because I do like the fact that he does have those really quality attacking numbers, and I do think that he will get a real solid opportunity in 2024 with Kurt Capewell going. I'd be probably more happy to put him into the back end and do the job.
Yeah, I'm easy. I'm happy, mate. If you're putting a Broncos player, I'll let that happen because I know that doesn't happen.
We're going to put him below Ben Condon. We're going to put him below Ben Condon there. No, I'm pretty okay with that. And obviously, was I right? He did play for the Cook Islands, right, in the World Cup.
Yep.
Yeah, so, when you get an international rep, even though it is for Cook Islands, which is a lesser tier nation, I still think that international rep for at least one of those kind of, I wouldn't call them a bigger nation, but, I do think the Cook Islands are on the up. So Brendan Piakura, for me, in to do the job. And yes, Broncos fans, say you can't call me biased now. Got you there. I've got you there for the rest of the season as well. I'm just going to say, hey, listen, I put Piakura to do the job. So when I say the Broncos suck, I'm not being biased. All right, let's now go into the Cronulla Sharkies. And it is Briton Nikora, a guy that I absolutely love. I think that he is phenomenal for the Sharkies. I think he works well with Nico Hines, obviously one of the primo attacking guys as well in Supercoach and Fantasy. Fun fact for everybody, we did the rugby league. We did the draft with Rugby League Guru for the Cronulla Sharkies. And I actually had Briton Nikora as a guy that I would love to bring into my all-time team. This comes out after that because the Sharkies draft, would have already dropped, so I can say this. But I put Briton Nikora into my back row because I thought he would be phenomenal in that team. So for me, I think that he is a extremely fantastic player, plays for New Zealand, and I'd put him into the elite category.
Yeah, I think I was tossing up whether quality or elite, but his numbers really tell a story here. 11 runs per game, averaging 102 meters per game, 35 tackles per game, also above average for tackle breaks and offloads, above average for absolutely everything, to be honest. He had 18 line breaks, the most of any second rower this season. So I do think that he's definitely deserving to be pushed up into that elite category.
Yeah, I just think that when you're looking across the back rows of the game right now, there's really probably only we'll get into it a lot more, but yeah, there's not a great deal of just elite, but there is still also a lot of quality that will come up here. And I think that Briton Nikora is that next step up from guys like a Beau Fermor that you will see here that are really quality, but Nikora just is that better guy as we currently speak with the above averages there. So very happy to put him into elite. Don't think he'll go number one, obviously. I think we all know who's probably going to go 1 and 2, especially with the Titans fan being on this, being the guy here. But yeah, no, Briton Nikora definitely deserves to go into the elite category. All right, we move now into the Newcastle Knights, and it is Brodie Jones, a guy who has been around for quite some time now. Plays a couple of positions, to be honest with you. What are your thoughts on Brodie Jones?
Yeah, definitely defense more his strength than attack. He averages about 4 runs per game off the bench, 6 when he does start. He started for 2 games last season, averaging about 60 minutes, which is below your usual starting second rower time on field. In that, both averaging off the bench and his second row under 50 meters. So a bit, as I mentioned, underwhelming in attack. I'd have him not that great. I'd have him between Billy Burns and Ben Trbojevic.
Well, right now we've got Billy Burns, and then we've got Ben Murdoch-Masila, and then Ben Trbojevic.
Oh, sorry.
So
Ben Murdoch-Masila. Sorry, probably after Ben Murdoch-Masila and between Ben Trbojevic and that. I think he's just a bit better.
Yeah,
been around a bit more.
Oh, you think he's above Ben Trbojevic? Yes.
Ben Trbojevic, yes.
Yeah, because we're doing it between Ben Murdoch-Masila and Ben Trbojevic. So when you said, I think he's a little bit better than Ben, I was like, oh, well, which one we're talking about here? But yeah, no, I agree. I recently was kind of hovering in between Billy Burns and Murdoch-Masila, and then put him down there. And then, yeah, you've agreed there. So no, I'm pretty happy to put him into that position. All right, let's now go into the bottom of the squeals. And it's Bryce Cartwright here. A guy who maybe I don't have the greatest thought process on based on his Titans days. But at the Eels, I do think he's been doing a really solid job. I think he's really been helping out this team off the bench there. And, they do have a solid forward pack. And I think that Bryce Cartwright does complement it well, especially with his, ability to move the ball around. What are your thoughts on Bryce Cartwright?
Yeah, I think his season this season was his best in a long time, probably since his Panthers days. No offense to the Titans times, but he's really come back to form. He was a bit out of the way, but this year, starting at second row, averaging 114 run meters, 13 runs per game. Offloads, he's always got his arm free and offloading. He averaged 2 per game and 2.24 tackle breaks. Also above average for season tries and line breaks, 7 apiece. So I have him at the bottom end of quality, but I know was a one-season wonder, so I'm happy to do the job.
I think that I think he's kind of in that same situation. He's in a similar situation. No, actually, no, I won't. I was going to try and compare him with Angus Crichton in a way, but they're actually on the opposite sides of the spectrum, but similar but opposite, if you know what I'm saying there.
Yep.
Look, I think that, yeah, that's a hard one. Bottom of quality or top of do the job. He did have that electric year, but it also was the first year in quite a while.
Yeah, there's definitely a recency bias.
Yeah, I think you put him at top and do the job. I think that there is that recency bias there based off of last year. If he does it again, then he'll bump straight up into quality next year. But yeah, are you putting him top and do the job?
Yeah, I think I am. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We'll put him there. Obviously, Squills fans, let us know in the comment section what your thoughts are of Bryce, and if you think that we're being Muppets, which potentially we are, but you got to come into the thought process of potentially recency bias there. All right. We now go into the Melbourne Storm. It is Chris Lewis, a guy who has been around the system for a while now. Don't think he's been able to really show out just yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely got him in the not that great category, kind of in between more Ben Trbojevic and Ben Condon. I think he's just a little bit better. He does get that starting role. He is trusted with that starting second row position. He played 1 game last year in that starting second row spot, averaged 6 runs and
he's
54 meters. I know.
He's trusted more.
They don't just hand out second row positions at the Melbourne Storm. Okay, they've got a great bunch of players coming through. Jake Hoer for once was also coming on there as well. So there's definitely some players around that category, but I definitely have Chris Lewis just above Ben Condon.
Yeah. No, I'll agree with you. I don't think it's a bit of a muchness, especially when you're in that bottom of not that great category. I think there's much of a muchness there, but no, I'd agree with you. I do think that you do see Chris Lewis probably a little bit more than Ben Condon there. And if Craig Bellamy sees something in you, man, I'm probably going to trust him.
Absolutely.
So, you'd lean with Craig Bellamy over Anthony Seibold, to be completely honest with you. No offense, Benny Condon, but I'm leaning with Craig Bellamy over Anthony Seibold. All right, let's go now into the Cowboys. And it is Coen Hess, a guy who's been around for a long time, and has played some front row, has played obviously in the back row here, and has had some really solid moments throughout his career. He has been, I think, at a point in his career, he was in the quality tier, probably back end or mid range there. But I do think that obviously he's dropped down a little bit now. You're the Cowboys fan here, man. What are your thoughts on Coen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this season was a step up from his previous seasons. I'm not too convinced that front row is his spot. I think second row is definitely more suited to him. He debuted as a second rower. It was really a talent in those first couple of seasons. Whether it was Jonathan Thurston making him look good or not, I'm not too sure. But
Mate, Thurston
this
would
year
make me
round,
and you look good.
I know exactly. Anybody look good. Probably was Thurston then. But no, he played 7 games starting second row, averaged about 64 minutes, 7 runs per game, 67 run meters, and 30 tackles, all of which were below the starting second rower average in the NRL, despite quite solid numbers. For that, I've actually got him above Billy Burns here on the not that great category. I just think he's just slipped below do the job with his previous, accreditation of being a Maroon as well. So yeah, that's where I put him. It could be a bit harsh, but I just think Piakura, he's definitely more talented than Coen Hess.
Yeah.
Has a bit more in attack and defense to show, but I still think I'd have Coen Hess above Billy Burns and probably pick Coen Hess above Billy if I had the opportunity.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been unhappy if you had said like the back end of did the job there. I do think the Piakura, obviously with his age as well, is an advantage there. Plus also, yeah, his attack and stats. I would have been unhappy if you put him last, but you are the Cowboys fan, man, so I'll trust your opinion, especially on your player and also the stats there. So put him at the very top of not that great, and I think that's a pretty reasonable position there. All right, let's go into the Redcliffe Dolphins, the Broncos in disguise, Connelly, Lemuelu. This is a real one that had a great year in 2023. Connelly Lemuelu really kind of proved himself. Did he come from the Cowboys?
He did come from the Cowboys as well. And he cemented his spot there, obviously, with Kaufusi out at times. But even off the bench, he was such an impact player. He earned that starting spot by the end of the season. He played 18 games at starting second row, averaged 71 minutes, 100 meters per game, 38 post-contact meters. Those two stats were above the average for a starting second rower. Tackle breaks 2.1, and he also made 9 line breaks, which was the third most of any starting second rower last season. So I think he did really well, and I'd put him above Brendan Piakura in the do the job section because I thought he did his job and a bit more for the Dolphins at a time when they really needed somebody to step up.
I was considering putting him into quality. Like, I'll be honest with you. I was considering putting him into the quality tier. I thought that he had such a big year, but maybe that could be recency bias. That could be based off of that 1 year. I just think that in that 1 year, he did show some unbelievable talent. That was something that, does, I don't know. I do think it was quality, but maybe it is just that 1 year kind of deal. Angus Crichton and Bryce Cartwright do have the experience over him, absolutely. Do you see where I'm coming from, though? Like, did you have that inkling that you wanted to put him in quality, but he probably does deserve to go down there with the kind of players around him?
Yeah, I think that he put up some really good numbers, and he put up better numbers than Bryce Cartwright. Oh, in terms of run meters, maybe not, but in terms of post contact meters, in terms of tackle breaks and line breaks, he definitely put up better stats than Angus Crichton and Bryce Cartwright. But as I mentioned, got to try and steer away from that recency bias and look. He's only just starting. Definitely quality is his next stop. But if I'm picking Origin and I've got to put Cartwright, Lemuelu and Bryce Cartwright in a team, I'm probably leaning towards the experience of Cartwright and Crichton.
I would agree with you.
Lemuelu, so I put him in that do the job.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The guys above him there do have that experience there, and it is that kind of 1 year thing with Lemuelu so far. So I do think that next year he could absolutely be in quality if he does it again this year. And I think he will be in quality by the end of the year. But for the time being, the guys above him do have that experience, and that you do have the proof in the pudding, I guess, more so with those guys there. So we'll put him above Piakura, below Angus Crichton. All right. We now go into the Canberra Raiders, and it is Corey Harawira-Naera, who is a very difficult one, man, because I don't even know if he actually has there been any official news on if he's actually going to continue as a player, because we all do know about the really tough situation that happened last year. We won't go too much into that one. So I guess we kind of have to ignore that per se. But with that being said, he may not actually play again. I think he's deciding right now whether he wants to or not, or there might be a medical thing. But for me, like when he's on the field, man, I think he's a really solid player. It's just really hard to kind of get a read right now because we don't know if he's going to play again.
Yeah, this one's a real tough one because he is such a good player, and we're just not too sure if he will take the field again after his unfortunate injury. Honestly, I've got him in that bottom of the do the job category. He's been there and done that before. He's been really great with the Panthers, maybe not so the Bulldogs, but when he was playing for the Bulldogs, he was one of their strike weapons. Since he's coming to the Raiders, he's been real solid as well, averaging around that 80 meters per game as second rower, also off the bench as well. Defensively, best defensive season, 92% tackle efficiency as well. So he's really improved his defensive game. Really unfortunate for him not to continue to keep playing. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully wishing him all the best. For me, I've got him at the bottom end of do the job, just after Piakura off the back of that.
Yeah, no, I'll agree. I'll put him there as well. And yeah, bless up to him. We won't speak too much more about him, but bless up. I hope you're right, man. And, really, really tough to see. So we all love you here in the rugby league community, Corey. All right, let's go into Manly now. He was at the Doggies, but it is Corey Waddell, whatever it is. I hope you don't take offense to me saying your last name incorrectly. And I hope you don't take offense to what I'm about to say. I do think that he's probably going to go into that not bad great category. I didn't see enough of him. Well, we saw him at the Dogs, but I don't think we got to see a real quality version of him, and I don't think the Doggies was a great setup for him. So maybe Manly could be something that does change him around. He does have a few better plays, in my personal opinion, at Manly. But for me, he will more than likely go into that not that great category.
I'm gonna put him on a pedestal here. I'm gonna put him at the back end of do the job, actually above CHN as well.
Here we go.
To be honest, mate, he played 10 games starting second rower. He averaged 13 runs per game. That's more runs per game than Briton Nikora. He had 107 run meters as well, more than Briton Nikora. He had 34 tackles, which was basically on par as Briton Nikora as a starting second row. So he put up some big numbers. Obviously didn't make too many line breaks, but let's not forget he was playing for the Bulldogs and didn't have that opportunity. But when he was playing, really good numbers there. Even more impressive, off the bench, he averaged about 38 minutes, but he made 12 runs per game. He made 100 meters per game in that 38 minutes too, which is quite astounding for an average. He really put in the numbers and he's just behind a poor pack, to be honest, and never really got that light. But I thought he was one of the shining lights statistically for the Bulldogs. So I actually had him in that do the job category. Hopefully we see that shine. He's with Manly this season, no?
Yeah, no, he's with Manly now.
Manly. Yeah, so hopefully he gets that opportunity, especially with Kelma Tuolungi, I think, moving on. I think he's a good shot for that second row position. I know Josh Schuster's folding back into there, but he could really, if he gets a roll on, he could push Schuster onto the bench.
Yeah, look, I don't mind. That's what I was saying. Like, he obviously was with the Doggies, so maybe we just didn't get to see that kind of shining light. And maybe when you are at a team like the Dogs of 2023, yeah, as a whole, every single player does get brought down a little bit in your mind. And I think that might be what I've seen there with Cora, because obviously I didn't see those kind of stats there. But yeah, I'm okay with that one, to be completely honest with you, man. Maybe he's just one of those players that you have to really be a fan of the team. There are a lot of players like that. For example, Chrissy Randall is a perfect example of that, where you really notice him when you're a Titans fan and when you're a Knights fan when he was there, but you maybe not so notice him as much when you're not a fan of the club. And I think maybe Corey Waddell might be that guy at the Doggies and now obviously at Manly, where he does have an opportunity. So I'm happy to give you this one as well, where we go above Corey Harawira-Naera. Because I know that when we get to a Titans player, that means I can push him up a notch and you can give me that one. No, but I do agree with you based on those stats. All right, so we'll put next up here, we're going to go into it hasn't actually come up here on the screen. I don't know where he's not there. Maybe that's him there. Hold on. Where's Make Sure here? Okay. Yeah, no, that's got it wrong. So this is actually Dan Russell here. We've got Dan Russell. I'm actually looking at that Cowboys play that we talked before the podcast, where It's hard to say his name, but it's Dan Russell's come up first here for the Dragons. Obviously, does play for Papua New Guinea as well. What are your thoughts on Dan Russell? Because he did get a very limited opportunity in 2023, but has also been around for a little bit now.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought he did really well filling in at starting second row for the Dragons. Obviously, basically only had one game off the bench, and then he was basically thrown into the starting lineup. He averaged about 79 minutes, so he's almost playing an 80-minute game there. Most impressively, he averaged 41 tackles per game at second row. Defense definitely is strong strength. Whereas when we look at his attacking numbers, he's averaging about 7 runs per game, 66 meters. So he's definitely doing more in defense than he is attack. I haven't been not that great. Looking around, I'd kind of put him in between Brodie, Jones, and Ben Trbojevic, if not just after Ben Trbojevic. I think he's still got a big future. I reckon he's going to be huge for the Dragons in that second row position moving into 2024 as well. So one to keep an eye on. But definitely more of a defensive player than he is an attacking weapon.
I think the only thing I'd push back on that is I would personally put him above Murdoch-Masila based off of the age factor and based off of the fact that he does have more time to kind of shine. I don't think he's ever going to be a superstar at the Dragons for sure, but I just think that based off of that age factor, he does still have time to kind of, and the Dragons are such a team to look at right now. But would you completely push back on putting him above Murdoch-Masila?
No, I'm absolutely fine with doing that. I think if you if you compare the pair, I guess in that sense, they both average about 7 run meters. Murdoch-Masila averaging a little bit more in meters, but definitely in that defensive side, Dan Russell has him covered. So they're basically the same in attack, but Dan Russell's better in defense. So I guess you got to give the advantage there to D-Russ.
Yeah, well, defense wins championships. Unfortunately, Dragons. It's not something in your vocabulary, but in the same sense, defense wins championships. So we'll chuck him there. A couple of Dragons, boys. Okay, this is the big one. This is the big one right here, fellas. David Fifita here for the Gold Coast Titans. Obviously, for me, he's the best back row in the competition. And, people can call me biased all they like, but I really hope that I'm about to go to Rando here, and he's about to give me the good news that David Fifita is statistically the best back row in the competition. Because I say it all the time, he's an unbelievable back row for attack, but in 2023, he really did become a lot more balanced of a player where he was a lot better defensively as well. So I'm going to go to Rando here. Give me the good news. I know we're both, I'm putting him above Brett Nikora. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm just throwing it out there. You're up, Rando.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you. I think David Fifita is the best statistical player of second rower in the competition at the moment. And I mean, a lot of people be like, oh, well, he's not his 2021 self, but how about we look at other things rather than tries and line breaks? He averaged 20 more meters per game in 2023 than he did in 2021. He made 100 more tackles in defense than he did, and in fact, over 100 more tackles in defense than he did in 2021. And that's playing the same amount of games. Offload-wise, about the same as well. But really some fantastic numbers here. And it was great to see David Fifita get back at it. Average 16 runs per game, 150 meters per game, almost 50 post-contact meters per game, a whopping 6.24 tackle breaks per game. I believe that was the competition leader as well for tackle breaks on average. In fact, he was just behind good old Dylan Edwards and Greg Marzu. But that's still quite amazing as well, because they are basically coming out of yardage and easily make the first tackle break, whereas David Fifita is looking at running at fucking 4 or 5 blokes who are going to wrap him up. So that just goes to show the difference there. Instead of beating just one player, he's beating multiple players who are all coming to try and take him down. So David Fifita, back to his best, was really excited to see it too, because he needed to put up, because last season, I think you can admit too, that he just wasn't his self.
Yeah, well, that was the sexiest thing you've ever said there, Rando, because I've had to defend this guy week in, week out, year in, year out, and I'll continue to do it too. And I always say David Fifita is the best statistical back row in the competition, and obviously we'll get to another one who is at the Panthers very, very soon. But at the end of the day, David Fifita is the best back row in the competition right now, and people can insult the Titans all they like. So if you're insulting the Titans and saying they're not that great, well, David's doing all this without that great kind of system there, like a Panthers or like a Melbourne Storm with Cameron Munster and Jerome Hughes and whatnot. So he's doing this at this level without that great team around him, as per what you guys say. So that's why I absolutely love to hear that from Rando. It really does kind of make me happy to be proven right in that situation, and not just being biased, if you know what I'm saying, because obviously, it's very easy to be biased around your own team. And yeah, in 2022, he wasn't at his best, but in the same sense, that was an awful year for the Gold Coast, where we really did go young in the spine, and we've realised that wasn't the way. That's why Foster's come in there and playing that 5'8" now. We've got Sammy Verrills as well and whatnot. So we've got a bit more experience in those positions. But yeah, 2022, I don't think he was awful by any means. I still think he was an elite back rower. Just wasn't anywhere near the quality that he has produced in 2023 and also in 2021, as he said. So really looking forward to him in 2024, because under Desi, it's going to be spicy, baby. Oh, gee whiz, it's going to be spicy. So we'll chuck him into the elite category. Again, Rando, that was the best thing you ever said in your life. All right, so we move now into Dimitri Sefakula here for the Warriors. I think he's going to go straight into the unproven, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. I've just got him above Brandon Tumeth basically on games played. I played three games last season, averaged 18 minutes, 2 runs, 13 tackles off the bench. So yeah, a bit more experience than Brandon Tumeth, so that's why I've just got him above him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll just leave it at that one. Okay, now we get into the Cowboys player that I was talking about before that, again, is going to go into the unproven category. And forgive me. Actually, you know what? Hey, Rando, can I get you to try and pronounce his name there for us?
I just can't. I can't actually see his name, to be honest, so I'm not too sure.
That's a lie. Don't you lie to me. Don't you lie to me. So no.
D. His name's D. His nickname's D. I'm on a nickname basis with him, so he just calls me D. He calls me Rando. So that's how we move.
Exactly right.
But obviously, you're not on that level, so you must say his name. Unfortunately.
Well, I'll do my best here. So I'll go Jazare Pua'Avase. Jazare Pua'Avase. I think I've done okay there. It could be D. You know what? I call him DJ. You can call him D. I'm going to call him DJ.
Oh, he doesn't like that. He doesn't like DJ.
Oh, he doesn't like DJ.
Not like DJ.
Well, we're going to put him in unproven. I think we're going to put him at the bottom of unproven just because we don't know anything about him.
He hasn't debuted, yeah.
Yeah, I that's actually, when I was on this list, it was the first time I've heard of him. So no disrespect, I hadn't heard of you before, and I think Rando was the same. So best of luck, DJ D. DJ D. He'll love that. Yeah, DJ Jazare, love your work, mate. All right, we'll go now into the Knights. And it is Dylan Lucas, who hasn't really done much, in my personal opinion. What would you say on Dylan?
Yeah, I think he hasn't done too much, but he is putting up quality numbers in that piece. He's averaging about 11 runs per game at 93 run meters. Really filled in that piece when they were missing obviously Lockie Fitzgibbon out with injury towards the back end of the season. He played 6 games starting at second row, basically played 80 minutes for each, averaged 42 tackles, the second most of any starting second rower in the league. So he definitely was brilliant in defense. Attack, also putting up really high numbers, 11 run meters. So you can't really knock him on that. He screams of do the job, but I know he's only played 7 games. So up to you whether you want to put him at the back.
No, I'm liking that. I'm liking those stats, to be completely honest with you. And that's why it's great having the random stats go on here, because it comes with the stats that really can, prove you wrong, prove you right. And I'm pretty happy. But he's only played 7 games, but with that being said, I think that I'd be putting him I'd put him above Corey Harawira-Naera.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I'd definitely put him above CHN. I think he's kind of on that same level as Connelly Lemuelu as well. I think if he played that same amount of games, would we be talking in the same sphere? If we played 18 starting games at second row, would we be talking about Dylan Lucas around that Lemuelu sort of stage as well? Obviously, only played 6 games, so didn't have too much of a start, but boy, did he fill that role for the Knights and help them win all those games as well, because that's still a big job to do, to defend at that back row position against some pretty quality teams and get the dub.
I'm pretty happy to put him above Brendan Piakura there. I'd be pretty happy to do that. Piakura's got a lot to prove this year. I guess so does Lucas. Lemuelu probably got more of an opportunity and did show out with that opportunity throughout those amount of games. So I think that he probably does go above him. But Would you say you agree with potentially putting him below Lemuelu above Piakura?
I'd probably put him below Piakura just on games,
Okay.
but I'd probably above Waddell
Yeah.
and CHN.
Yeah, I don't mind that. Don't mind that at all. All right. Well, we get into Dylan Walker here for the New Zealand Warriors, a guy who just plays pretty much everywhere. Plays front row, plays back row, plays lock, plays everything, right? He's just a forwards utility. Effectively, can probably play in the, or does play in the halves at the time, and also the hooker, right? So Dylan Walker can play pretty much everywhere. But I do think that pretty much everywhere he will go straight into the do job category. I do think that in back row we don't see him a great deal of times. He doesn't start in the back row, but he'll come off the bench and play all kinds of positions. So I do think it'll be at the back end, but I do think that every single time you talk about Dylan Walker, he just does the job.
Yeah, I think you got to do the job. He'll fill in. He's Mr. Fix-It, almost like the Orbo of the Warriors. He'll go into any position and get that job done. Whoever second row is probably his best position. I wouldn't think so, but in saying that, really tough to get a gauge on his stats when he comes on and plays second row. You just see it under interchange, so you're not too sure where he goes at all.
Exactly right.
Because he does monitor a bunch of positions. But for the most part, I'm happy to put him above, maybe above CHN. I just think Corey Waddell.
I put him straight into the back end. I put him straight at the back, just because it's not usually his position. Harawira-Naera, at least it is his usual position, and he's kind of Dylan's more known for playing elsewhere, but it's more off the bench there. So that's why I put CHN above him.
Yeah, happy to do that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move now into Eagle Butcher, who from the Roosters I actually really liked. I thought that he had a great season last year. Especially, alongside his brother, Nat Butcher on the same team. I thought that Egan really came on and did a real solid job for the Roosters when he was playing. What are your thoughts on Egan Butcher?
Yeah, I thought he was brilliant. I don't think he upstaged his brother Natty, but I do think that he did play really well. What's most impressive about his stats here is that he was more efficient off the bench in attack. So he played 16 games starting second rower, averaging 68 minutes. He played 2 games off the bench and only averaged 47 minutes, but he ran 5 more times on average off the bench with 20 less minutes and made 37 more meters. So he averaged over 100 meters in that 47-minute stint. So he really tapered his game around different things. He's definitely a more defensive-based player. He averaged 36 tackles when he started, which is definitely over average for a second rower. His runs, 8 and 72, which is about around that do the job phase. I've got him probably, would I put him there with Connelly? Maybe just behind Lemuelu. This is a real tough one to
I'll jump in then.
I guess.
I'll jump in with you having that kind of tough thought process. I would be happy to put Egan above him. I think that when I watched Egan last year, he really surprised me. I was not expecting a great deal out of Egan, but I would probably put him just above him. And I think that, Angus Crichton's experience does still keep him above Egan, but I would not be surprised in 2024 if Egan Butcher was able to jump above those two guys and actually even put himself into quality if he gets the opportunity to really show out his minutes. So I'd personally put him above Lemuelu.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of stats here that I want to just push by you just to make sure you're all good with it. Lemuelu obviously coming off, when they're both starting, Lemuelu has 2 more runs per game, averages 20 more run meters per game, has 1 more tackle break per game, 1 more offload per game. And the only thing he's down on is defense. So attacking wise, Lemuelu is the superior player compared to Egan. In terms of defense, though, Egan does make more tackles per game when he starts. So that's just something to take into consideration. How many more tackles? 8 tackles per game more.
Because I think those attacking numbers are quite close, but like 8 tackles more is also, pretty significantly. I'm still, from when you were talking about the first part, like the attacking numbers, it was close, but it was edging Lemuelu. But I think once you add in those 8 more tackles, that is probably something that I'd be happy to put Egan just above.
Easy. Happy to do so.
All right. Let's now go into the new Melbourne Storm boy. Obviously came across from the New Zealand Warriors, Eliesa Katoa, a guy that everyone was so high on, extremely high. Obviously under Craig Bellamy, you're always going to be high and excited to see, what can be produced there. And Eliesa Katoa was, I think he did a job. He's definitely did the job. He's not anything Lower than that, I don't think he reached the heights of what we wanted to see, but I do think that also comes from the fact that the Storm just, although they made the top 4 last year, were relatively underwhelming. They still made a preliminary final, and that tells you everything about the organisation that is Melbourne Storm. But Eliesa Katoa, what did you think about his first season there at Melbourne Storm under Craig Bellamy?
I think that he had a pretty great season.
Oh, really?
He had 12 line breaks, the second most of any second rower in the competition. He made more offloads than he ever has in his career in a season. Tackles, of course, but run meters especially. He topped over 100 run meters for the first time in his career. When he was starting at second rower, he made 11 runs per game, 105 run meters, and 2.11 tackle breaks, which was all above average for a starting second rower. So I thought he had a great start to his career. In terms of defense, he averaged about 29 tackles. I've got him, and I think we've found our middle point here, but is that we see that Lemu and Egan Butcher might be our middle ground here, because I've got him probably in between those two, if not maybe even above Egan, I dare say.
I'd probably say, like, when you were kind of going through those stats there, I was considering him into the quality, but I also do think that you're probably right, though. I'd probably put him above Egan. You know, and I do think that by the end of this season, he'll definitely go into quality. I love that you mentioned that, right? Because that's always something you kind of focus on early on in these videos. You start to kind of figure out, when you're experienced like we are, you start to figure out where that middle ground is. And Lemuelu and Egan Butcher, Lemuelu specifically, is the middle ground right now that you're looking at. So, it's quite funny you brought that up. But Eliesa Katoa, I would put him above Egan Butcher. I would not be out of putting him above Angus Crichton right now, but then again, it is kind of that recency bias again. So I'd keep him below Angus Crichton, but I do think that by the end of this year, he absolutely will be going into quality.
Yeah, absolutely. And if this is all based on 2023, easily above Angus Crichton.
Well, if it's based on 2023 specifically, he would have been above both.
He'd be quality. He's quality. Yeah, he's killing. Oh, yeah, exactly that. But same with Bryce Cartwright, we would put him in quality as well. So we're trying to think about the past as well. And Katoa obviously was pretty strong for the Warriors in a pretty bad side. Wasn't his greatest. This was a breakout season for him. I think next season is going to be even better for him as well, as he really cements that combination with Jerome Hughes on that right edge. So plenty to look at, and just keep an eye on him. Definitely a fantasy watch. If you're looking for someone mid-range price, LC Katoa, he's got it.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think he's around 657, so I don't even think he's really mid-range anymore. He's really starting to pick up there in the fantasy department. But yeah, no, it's gonna be a huge year for him. And I will say as well, guys, you've also got to remember that these lists are a collective. Like, we're trying not to have that recency bias, but you've also got to take that in, plus also the history and whatnot, the experience factor. So it is difficult, but at the end of the day, we do our best here to put them all together. And I'm just happy to see both of our starting back rowers there at the Titans in elite quality right now. And it's beautiful. It really is the Titans fan. It's beautiful. We're on the up, baby. We're on the up. But all right, let's now move into Elliott Whitehead here for the Raiders, who has been a very, very quality back row for a very long time now. Obviously getting on in age. I'm not too sure how much longer he's still got left in the tank, especially with the workhorse nature that he's had throughout his career. What are your thoughts on Whitehead?
Yeah, I think he's just a do the job sort of player. I think he's definitely got the experience behind him that pushes him up above that list, above the Dylan Lucases and the Brendan Piakuras. 23 games starting at second row, still averages 76 minutes per game, 8 runs, 69 meters, and 36 tackles per game. And a big one is that he is above on the offload list as well. So he can be a bit effective in that attacking style, but defensively, he's very strong with that 36 tackles. So where I put him, I mean, experience to me says a lot more than he probably beats out Egan and Lemuelu. He's a constant starter for the Raiders. I think he's the first man picked almost in that forward pack outside of Papa. And obviously, you know, Corey Horsburgh, but even Corey Horsburgh comes off the bench sometimes, whereas Whitehead, he's that certain starter. Yeah, Tarpany as well. I mean, outside those two front rowers, quality front rowers, I think he's definitely the next picked, and obviously the captain as well.
I dropped him into, when you were talking, I dropped him between Egan and Eliesa Katoa. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I think Eliak he provides a lot more. Definitely provides a lot more statistically, so I'm happy to put him in there.
Yeah, and still got plenty of age in his side as well. So really
Yep.
looking forward to that. But Whitehead into the do the job. Next up here we go to Manly, and it is going to be Ethan Bullimore here, a guy who originally came with the Broncos. I think last year was his first year at Manly, if I'm not mistaken. There, a guy that has started to probably show a bit more than what we've seen previously. He had some high reps at the Broncos, still has some high reps at Manly. You know, I do think there are better players than Ethan Bullimore, but I do think that he's trying hard to really show that he's, it's not just potential with him, right? What would you say in regards to Ethan Bullimore? Because I'm kind of in between right now, in between two categories.
Yeah, I think this season was kind of the expectation that he should have had last season. So he did play Manly last year, but
Oh
he
yeah,
was coming in and out of reserve grade, got dropped a couple of times. So this year he cemented his spot in the 17, played 19 games off the bench. In that 39-minute stint, he averaged 11 runs, 107 meters, and 41 post-contact meters. His defense was on the downside, but still more than the average interchange player, especially towards the back end. That's when we saw him. He only scored one try. Don't really need to monitor forwards on try scoring ability, though. For me,
unless you're Davey Fifita, where
unless you're
everyone just
David
tries to shit on him, like, just because he doesn't score 100 tries.
Exactly.
Anyway,
Exactly. We'll digress. I think that because off the bench, he still averages better than the average starting second rower. I'd put him at the end, toward the end to do the job. I think the more
I,
experience he gets, he's been pretty good, and I think he's going to be someone to watch in 2024 as well.
I put him above Harawira-Naera.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I put him above. Oh, I know. I won't do that. I'll keep him behind his teammate Waddle. I think I'll still pick Waddle over Bullimore if I had to. If I was Siebes.
Yeah, like that's look, it's gonna be interesting. Yeah, I think that Waddle, like those stats that you said before, really do shine. So I think that based off of the stats, I think he probably just gets above him. But Baltimore, based off of potential, should probably go above him. But again, that's just potential for the time being. All right, well, I'm happy with that. We'll move now into the Dolphins, and it's Felise Kaufusi, a guy who just does not stop. This guy just keeps on going. Obviously, still playing for Queensland when he's not suspended. Obviously, cracked on for the Dolphins this year. He is starting to get on in age, but I still would have him into the quality tier.
Yeah, I think he's definitely pushing quality. Felise Kaufusi, he averaged 11 runs per game, 105 meters, still at his ripe old age, and 27 tackles per game. I think he's still got it what it takes. I've got him at the bottom of quality.
Yeah,
I think Beau Fermor. I'd have Beau Fermor. Maybe it's tough. Should we keep Beau Fermor at the back of quality just because he didn't play last season?
That's a good shout, to be completely honest with you. We definitely could consider doing that. I do personally think that if you're selecting because you don't. Yeah, I would agree with you. Even though I want to put Bowie above him, and I do think that Bowie should be above Kaufusi right now based off of the stats. I do think that experience obviously comes in, plus also the ACL injury there, or the big time injury. I get confused which one of it is, whether it's Achilles or ACL with Bowie. But yeah, look, I think that we put him at the back end based off of that 2023 injury, hoping that he can come back from it. But yeah, if he plays the entirety of the season, touch wood that I believe he will, he's absolutely above Felise Kaufusi for me. But for the time being, we'll put Kaufusi at the top. Are you agreeing?
Yeah, agree with that.
All right, let's move now into, and that hurts to put it hurts to put a player lower from the Titans, but I have to be as unbiased as possible. Okay, we go now into Fletcher Baker for the Brisbane Broncos. Now, obviously, was at the Sydney Roosters. Wasn't really able to show out anywhere near as much as you'd like at the Roosters, and is going on for a new opportunity at the Bronx. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Fletcher, he's definitely towards the back end of the not that great. I probably, just purely because of how many games he played, I probably put him above Chris Lewis, but behind Ben Trbojevic in that regard. I think he's definitely got a lot to show. He played majority of the season off the bench last year, 15 games to be fair, and still averaged around that 66 meters, which wasn't too bad either. But yeah, I think I'm not too sure what happens to him at Brisbane if he gets much game time off the bench. I'd probably put him. Yeah, I see him as that Brodie Jones sort of Ben Trbojevic category.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm pretty happy to. Oh, so you're going to put him in between Brodie Jones and Ben Trbojevic. I was thinking above Chris Lewis, below Ben Trbojevic.
I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. Yeah.
I don't mind if you want to bump him up. Yeah, well, like as a back rower, I think we see more. I think we've seen more out of Ben, haven't we? He's played more
Yeah,
games.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I
Yes.
think Fletcher's played more games because Ben's been buoyed by injury. So
Oh yeah.
Fletcher has played more games, but I do think the stats kind of point towards Trbojevic. Bit
Yeah.
more, bit more.
100%. All right, let's go into Manly, a big bopper here. Big bopper, Hamoli Olakau'atu, who, has been fighting alongside Keon Kolomatangi for that back row spot in New South Wales. Obviously, Kolomatangi did get that opportunity in 2023. Olakau'atu is such an attacking weapon. I'd love to hear the defensive stats that you're probably going to bring up there from Olakau'atu, because for me, he's probably an elite behind Briton Nikora.
Yeah, I've got him up there. I think he's actually in between Briton Nikora and David Fifita. He's been amazing, and its attack is obviously the main his main weapon. He averaged 13 runs per game, 126 meters per game, 4 tackle breaks per game, 10 tries, 11 line breaks, 53 post contact meters, which I believe was the most of any second rower. Actually, the second most. I can't believe this other player who I'm going to bring up actually had more on average. But yeah, I think Hamoli, absolute destroyer in attack. And in defense, he still puts up his own 29 tackles, 91% tackle efficiency. So he still does make a defensive stronghold as well for Manly. So I do think that Hamoli, I think he offers more than Briton Nikora. It's a tough one. Nikora does run those sweet lines off Nicho Hynes, and Hamoli runs those sweet lines off Daly Cherry Evans.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's a tough one. I'd probably put them on equal, but I just have Hamoli at just.
Yeah, I'm happy with that one, man. Oh, geez, what's going on there? My alarm's going off. Gee whiz, that scared me. Absolutely, gee whiz. There we go. All right, so I'd be happy to put. Actually, I got to turn the other alarms off. Hold on. Otherwise, I'm going to be scared very, very soon because I've got a heap of them. But take that off, take that off, take that off. Bang. That was some Fijian music for you guys, though, at the very least. But yeah, no, I'm happy to put Olakau'atu above Nikora. Very, very close. But I'd be happy to put him above. So yeah, I will agree there. Okay, we'll go now into Hyam Lukey here for the Cowboys. You can take the floor because it is your team.
Yeah, absolutely. Hyam Lukey hasn't been able to kind of get away too much coming back from injury.
I remember this. We had this conversation a couple of years ago about Lukey and Nene, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Yes, and I said Lukey had more potential than Nene, and then Nene had that breakout season.
Yes.
So yeah, I still think Lukey's still got a lot to give. He has been given limited opportunity. Did get that starting role in the second row though. 9 games starting, 53 minutes on average. Average 9 runs per game, 85 run meters, 2 tackle breaks as well. So a bit of a handful in attack, of course. A lot less on the defensive side, so around that 23 tackle mark. For me, I've got him around that do the job category, probably above Ethan Bullymore, but I'd still think Waddell has him covered statistically.
Gee whiz, all right. So, yeah, I was thinking he might go above Waddle, but I'm happy to kind of put him below there, especially based on statistically, as you said. I'd be happy to do that. So. Yeah, we'll chuck him in there. I still think he has a lot to prove. He has a lot to prove this year in 2024. So best of luck to him. But yeah, still haven't been able to see it just yet. But does the job obviously when he's on the field. Okay, we'll go into a actual kind of tough one here in Hudson Young for the Canberra Raiders, who I called to have his Origin debut at the beginning of last year. I said that I think Hudson Young is going to have his debut. Did get that, but was super disappointed and underwhelming with how he was in that game. Whether he was told to do that or not, he came in, for me, with the attitude of talking shit to kind of get that win. You know what I'm saying? Like, he came with that aggressive personality and tried to get under the skin, and it worked against him. And it was actually really kind of cringe and embarrassing for him, in my personal opinion. And I don't think that it was his best year as well overall. And I think that maybe the game one did impact that. But What are your thoughts on Hudson Young, man? I do think he still has to go into the quality section, absolutely. He can't be playing Origin and not be in quality. And I do think that for the time being, he probably will, based on the stats you're probably about to say, he probably will go above Kaufusi there. But I was disappointed in his 2023 season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Huddy was a very disappointing in that sense. Obviously got the opportunity to represent his state. I thought last year, the year before was probably his prime. I thought he had a great
Yeah,
2022.
absolutely. Yeah.
Definitely fell off the cliff a bit in 2023. We saw him, instead of running the ball, getting a bit more offloads, maybe was targeted a lot more. And that does tend to happen with players in their second year. After a breakout one, they do get pulled up in video. People watch more about their behavior when they play. So that definitely could have been a factor. Interesting stats compared to Felice. He did have one run more than Felice per game, but he did average less meters than Kaufusi. In terms of tackles, he did have 2 more tackles per game than Kaufusi, and definitely in terms of tackle breaks, offloads, line breaks, etc., he did have that element. So I do believe he is bigger than Finn Diesel, than Finn Diesel from a statistical standpoint, but very close in terms of what they provide in attack in terms of runs and run meters. Of course, the offload and tackle break game of Hudson Young is that different element that he brings compared to Kaufusi.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. Like I said, I was disappointed with 2023, but we can't ignore 2022. Still played Origin, have him in quality, but would have him above Kaufusi. And I think that, when Bowie Fermor's playing again, we'll probably be able to compare them very similarly, actually. But with that being said, coming off the injury, okay with Bowie down there. But Hudson at the top of quality for the time being, but obviously that will change. Okay, let's move now into the West Tigers. Actually, funnily enough, very similar to Hudson Young in a way, not the personality thing, but very similar here is Isaiah Papali'i, who went from the Eels, had a fantastic, halves pairing and hooker of Mitchell Moses, Dylan Brown, Reid Marnie that was providing him some brilliant lines. He had a lot more direction there, and then went to the Tigers where he had Apiso Koroisau, but he also had Luke Brooks at the Tigers, and I think Brandon Wakeham for the most part there. Which was, very disappointing there. Obviously, wasn't able to achieve what he did in 2022 with the Parramatta Squeals, but he still is a quality back row for mine, but did drop off. I don't know, would you put him above or below Hudson Young?
I just put him above Hudson Young, to be honest. They both had 12 runs per game at starting second row. IPAP ran for 10 more meters. He had more tackle breaks. Just a little bit lower on the offloads, but he did make 33 tackles per game, which was 4 more per game than Hudson Young. So I actually have IPAP above Hudson Young, but don't get me wrong, also dropped off from the 2022 season. Just goes to show the difference between a quality halve and Mitch Moses versus Brandon Wakeham. That's no offense to Brandon Wakeham, but unfortunately in talent-wise, Mitch Moses is above him. IPAP had 10 less line breaks, 8 less tries, 17 less offloads. So really wasn't being put into space, had to work for his meters this season, 115 of them compared to 150 that he averaged the 2 seasons before with the Parramatta Eels. So definitely not his best season, but we also got to take those seasons into account when we look at this quality meter. I thought he was almost elite. I think last year when we were talking about him, he has dropped down since, but top of quality and above Hudson Young, I still think he is.
Yeah, he's definitely been in the elite category for sure. Going into last year, I think he came off that back rower of the year in the Dally M's in 2021 or 2022. Maybe 2022 when he was at the Eels. Yeah, he was Dally M back row of the year. So it wasn't elite, and people think he was the best back row in the comp. Kept having to fight for Dave Fifita's name, man. But Isaiah Papali'i he's a phenomenal player. It's just that unfortunately he's in a pretty rough system right now that he can't really show out. But be interesting in 2024 and definitely in 2025 when Jerome Luai obviously comes in. And they're obviously trying to figure he'll probably be the 7, so he'll definitely correlate specifically with a bit of IPAP. So, it'd be very interesting in 2025, but for the time being, top of quality. Okay, we'll go back to your boys here, the North Queensland Cowboys, and it is Jack Gosiewski, I think it is. What are your thoughts on Jack?
Yeah, Jack, he is a bit of that not that great category about him. 6 games starting at second row last year, averaged about 72 minutes, 9 runs per game, 80 run meters, 28 tackles per game. All were below the average starting second row position, but I thought in terms of his usual quality, I thought he stepped it up a notch. Unfortunately, still not being able to crack the others. I think Coen, Hess, and Billy Burns are ahead of him. And I would dare say Dan Russell is too. I'd probably put him towards that back end or middle range, I guess, of that not that great category. What were you thinking?
I'm happy to put him in between Dan Russell and Ben Murdoch-Masila, and I wouldn't even be upset to put him above Dan Russell. I think those guys are very similar, but I do think that it'd be a lot tougher this season as well for Gosiewski to really show out comparably to Dan Russell. I don't think any position really at the Dragons should be locked up besides Ben Hunt right now. So Dan Russell might get more opportunity to show out compared to Jack. Especially, with the likes of Hylam Lukey, with the likes of Jeremiah Nene, and even Coen Hess there above him, based on experience. So, yeah, I'd probably put him exactly what you said, above Ben Murdoch-Masila, but below Dan Russell. So, happy with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it comes down to, I think, like 2 extra runs per game for Jack Gosiewski, and 14 more run meters off the back of that. But obviously, Dan Russell, as I mentioned earlier, tackling machine, 41 tackles. That's 12 more per game than Jack did, and they played about the same amount of games as well. So yeah, I'm happy to have Jack underneath Dan just based on Dan's defense.
Absolutely. All right, let's go now into the Newcastle Knights, and here is Jack Johns, a guy who got a bit of game time last season. Not a spectacular amount of game time by any means, but I think that he's probably. Are you putting him into the not that great category or unproven?
Yeah, I'm probably putting him in the not that great category. I think he's had a few seasons now.
Really?
Across the Knights and the Rabbitohs as well.
Oh, wow.
I think he's given his chance to shine, I guess, so far, and he's just hasn't been able to really crack first grade and kind of cement his spot either on the bench or not.
Game time, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that last season was his 4th season. He's played 16 games of rugby league, and just been unable to really get far with his career. Personally, I'm probably putting him at the back end of not that great. And this is no offense to Matty Johns, Cooper Johns, Andrew Johns, all the Johnses. I'm not trying to pay you out whatsoever, but I just think Jack, out of all the players we have got there, I think him, Chris Lewis, Ben Condon, they're in that same sort of category of struggling to really become a regular.
I'd probably put Jack
grade.
Johns above Chris Lewis, below Fletcher Baker.
Okay, I'm happy with that.
You want to put him below? You want to put him further down?
I was putting him at the back end of not that great, the bottom spot.
I'm okay with it. I'm not upset with it, to be honest with you. So we'll chuck him there. You can kind of, like I said before, it's a bit of a muchness when you get to the real back end of that not that great category. They're all just kind of mulling around, to be honest with you. So happy to put him there. We're not happy to put him there. Jack did better this year, hopefully, 2024. But, you know what we're trying to say. All right, let's get to the Cronulla Sharkies with Jack Williams, who I just actually checked on my phone just then. I wanted to see how old he was because he only just really got a couple of opportunities in the Sharks in 2023, but he's actually 27 years old. So he's been around for a little bit now, and kind of only just starting to find a bit of a grasp for it. But I'm probably going to put him into the not that great category.
Yeah, I'd probably put him above, dare I say, Coen Hess. He has been around for a few years, as you mentioned. Last year, all his games were off the bench. He averaged about 35 minutes, 96 meters per game, which was more than the average starting second rower, and more post-contact meters. So definitely a handful in attack, definitely winds it down in defense, but still 24 tackles in 35 minutes is quite an achievement, especially when you're running it 9 times a game as well. That's basically 33 involvements in 35 minutes per game, in 35 minutes each game, which is quite phenomenal. He's also above average for line breaks, despite coming off the bench in all those games as well. So he's definitely got a bit of talent behind him. And I do think he offers a little bit more than Coen Hess, and he is younger than Coen Hess too. So he's still got some opportunity there, but definitely better than Billy Burns, Dan Russell.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, 100%. All right, well, let's move now into Jackson Ford here for the New Zealand Warriors. And he probably had his most successful season to date in 2023 with the New Zealand Warriors. Obviously came from the Dragons. It was just solid. I think that he's just the epitome of a do-the-job guy, and I think he's going to be probably upper end of do the job or just above that kind of middle part. And I think he's probably one of the better guys in that do the job category. But I think that he had a great season there for the Warriors.
Yeah, I thought he was fantastic. He's actually above average in every key stat for second rows as well. He averaged over 11 runs per game, over 100 meters per game, over 36 post-contact meters per game, averaged 36 tackles as well. So he's up in attack and defense, as well as 2.4 tackle breaks per game, which was higher than the 2.1 average for second rowers. 9 line breaks in 2024 as well, which was the fifth most. He did have a solid year. Recency bias as well. I'd put him bang spank in the middle of where our middle point is, just above Piakura, but below Connelly.
I think that based off of that year, even though Connelly did have, he is that youthful prospect, I do think that Jackson probably deserves to be above him. I think it was such a good year for the Warriors there that it probably just backs him up. And I do think that with him being a starting back rower, I also would put him above Egan, but I wouldn't put him above Elliott Whitehead. But I would be happy to put him above Egan there, just because he did start for the Warriors, had such a great year. It is recency bias, but if we take out the recency bias kind of conundrum, he would have had, he was quality for 2023, right? So, I don't know, I'd be happy to put him above Egan, below Whitehead coming into 2024.
But if you put your Roosters sombrero on for 5 seconds and you're picking Egan Butcher or Jackson Ford to start for you, who are you doing?
Yeah,
you would pick Egan.
I'm putting the sombrero on. Yeah, we'll put Egan above.
When you have a margarita and you put the sombrero on, things change. Things change, and all of a sudden your Range Rover's out front.
I just got to get I got to feel like a latte. So, hey, I've got an empty coffee cup here. Let's just assume it was a latte. There you go, Roosters fans. But yeah, Egan Butcher. Yeah, and I go to this all the time. These videos when it comes to like a draft. I would draft Egan over Jackson, to be honest with you. But Jackson did have such a phenomenal year. Could definitely be in quality if he does it again in 2024. But when he was at the Dragons, he was quite underwhelming. So I'm okay with that, to be honest with you. But good luck in 2024 with the Warriors. Okay, let's go into Jackson Torpeny here for the Canterbury Bulldogs. He's going to go into not that great category, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Just hasn't been able to find his feet at first grade level as well. I'd still put him probably put him in between Fletcher Baker, Chris Lewis here. He had 5 games last season, 3 off the bench, 2 at starting second row. When he was starting, though, quite impressively, he averaged 46 tackles per game, which is a lot for a second rower, the most on average. I know he only did play 2 games, but still 92 tackles in those 2 games is quite impressive. Attack-wise, he's averaging around that 7-8 runs per game, 70 meters as well, which isn't the worst, but I think just a limited opportunity for him in a pretty poor side. Does drop him back. And I think Fletcher Baker, the fact that he has been benched and averaging about 15 games per season for the last 3 seasons, he's got a bit more street cred than Jackson Torpeny.
Yeah, no, I'll agree with that one there, man. So we'll chuck him down there above Chrissy Lewis, below Fletcher Baker. All right, we're back into the Gold Coast Titans. Elite Jacob Arlick, that's for sure. Jacob Arlick, I think for me, is going to go into the unproven category. Still super young. Obviously plays for Papua New Guinea as well. Don't know what Desi's going to do. Don't know if Jacob will make the 17 there for the Gold Coast Titans. But with that being said, we have seen nearly got an assist with his first touch of the ball against the Dolphins in 2023, which was fantastic. But it did get called back for a no try there in the bunker. Damn well, screw you, bunker. Gee whiz. But yeah, I think he's going to go into the unproven category. I would be, and I'm trying not to be biased here, but I genuinely would think to put him at the top or even second of unproven.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he played more games than Ben Lovett last season, and they both had their debut seasons, but only 1 game more. In terms of attack, Ben Lovett did have about four runs per game, whereas Jacob, he kind of averaged around that at 5 runs per game, so he did get some more runs off the bench than Ben. Also pretty good in defense, 14 tackles compared to Ben's 11. So it's a really dry line, but yeah, for sure, we can put Alec at the front of unproven. I still think Ben Lovett has a bigger ceiling, but time will tell.
How dare you? How dare you say something so obscene, so absolutely humorous to say that Jacob Alec is not going to be an elite and the most potential. But no, I agree with you. But we'll put him in unproven at the top. Thanks for coming. Okay, we'll go to Jacob Host here for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. And just to clarify for everyone at home wondering, we have 2 and a bit pages of guys to go through, and we've just completed the first page. So we're just basically at the halfway point, Rando.
Let's go. What are we? Hour in? Oh, hour and 15 in.
Hour and 15 in, mate. So it probably will go for about 2:45, nearly 3. But we have no real time limit here, guys. So here's the time while we've been talking. I hope you've gone and go to beer or coffee, because let's go again. Second half, in we come. But then again, I'm a Titans fan, and Titans aren't great in second half. So maybe I shouldn't have referred to it with that. But Jacob Host, South Sydney Rabbitohs. This is one that, look, I guess he's amongst the content creator game, so you kind of want to give him that advantage there. But when it comes on the field, haven't really seen him evolutionize into the potential that we could have seen from him. I think he's probably going to be going into the not that great category.
Yeah, I think I've got him in there too. His stats kind of paint the picture. He averaged 56 minutes starting second row in his 15 games last season. 9 runs per game, 82 meters per game, 23 tackles per game, all underneath the average of a second rower. I've been really disappointed with Jacob Host coming to the Rabbitohs. I thought it was a huge career move from him moving to the Dragons. I thought he was going to really solidify and cement his spot as that starting second rower. Unfortunately, it hasn't become that. And Jai Arrow and Keon Kaloamatangi have really cemented their spots there. For that, I still think I'd pick him just over Coen Hess, but I think Jack Williams would even top him. So I'd put him in between there.
I'll agree with you. I'm pretty happy to put him into that category there. And I still think he's got a few years on Coen, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he's about the same age as Jack Williams, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, let's go now into a bit of the woof, bit of the doggy woof here. Jacob Preston, who obviously, and if you can see like watermarks on my shirt, guys, just know it's really hot in the day that we're filming right now. But yeah, Jacob Preston, obviously for the Bulldogs, he had a phenomenal rookie year, man. And I think that obviously he had such a good year for the club that he can't go into unproven. Usually after just one season, you do look to wanting to put them, if they've not played a full season then, usually it's under 20 games, but usually you do look to the unproven marker there, but he was just quality. He was quality. But with that being said, you've also got to see that Hudson Young, Isaiah Papali'i, even Beau, Fermor, and Felix Kaufusi, they've all done it on more than just that 1 year. So it is hard to kind of place him there, but I definitely would be putting him as the quality category.
Yeah, absolutely. He had a quality season, but he's well in his right to be a smoky for New South Wales next year if he keeps up the form.
It's a big call though, because they do have Keon, they do have Hamoli.
I know. But even like an 18th, 19th man spot like that, I wouldn't be surprised if he does get the call up there to be in the camp. He played 18 games starting second row, averaged 77 minutes. 9 runs per game, 92 meters, 39 tackles, which was well above the average, and pretty good for an 18 gamer. So I do really think he was great. 9 line breaks as well, the 4th most from a second rower this season. So personally, I'd put him above Jackson Ford.
Oh, wow.
I think he had a better season than Jackson Ford. I know Jackson Ford hit all the averages. Statistically, they had the exact same line breaks. They had, Jacob Preston had more tries, but he did have more tackles. And in terms of runs, it was really close between them. Only 10 meters per game difference, and that was 2 runs difference. So Jacob Preston actually has the better meters per run than Jackson Ford. But you can't tell me that Jackson Ford isn't knocking on the door of Origin compared to the hype that we've been seeing from Jacob Preston.
Yeah, the reason why I said, oh, wow, is because I was actually considering putting him at the back, like the last place of quality. I was genuinely considering that based on what we saw. But then I realized, as you were talking as well, that it was kind of the first half of the season. I feel like he fell off a little bit in the second half of the season, but the first half was where he really made those numbers. But then again, I guess the doggies started off quite well too, So, look, I'd be happy to put him back down into there. Don't hurt me, doggies fans. I think based off of, like, if I was taking a draft, right this very second, I do think the potential from what we can see from Jacob, like that was his first year, right? So I would put him above Egan. I would. I put the salary cap sombrero on. I put my sombrero on with my latte. I'm still probably taking Jacob above Egan.
Yeah, I think that's a fair call. It's really tight there. I think they're almost on par with each other. But I'm happy. You've moved a few players for me. I'll move this one for you.
Would you even be happy to put him above Whitehead?
No, I don't. I just think you can't cut that experience. England captain, Canberra captain. I just don't
still
think...
starting back role for Raiders.
Yeah,
I'm okay with it. If he was coming off the bench now because of his age or whatnot, or I would agree. And
is
I would say,
is Preston forcing himself onto that Raiders side? If he plays next season and he's signed by the Raiders, is he playing starting second row, or are you putting Huddy Young and Whitehead there?
Yeah, I think for the time being, it would be Whitehead. That's actually a good analogy, actually, because I think Whitehead would still make it, and Preston would come off the bench, and there'd be an incredibly good bench there. I would agree with you there. That's why these lists are so hard, because again, 2023 was so quality that I wanted to put him into the back end of quality, but then it was the first half, not necessarily the second half. That also correlated with the team. And then, if he was to go to the Raiders, Whitehead probably still gets that spot for this year, and then next year Preston gets as the starting guy. I think next year definitely Preston will go above Whitehead based off of if he can do again this year, and he'll go into quality. But for the time being, I do agree with you, Rando. We'll chuck him above Egan, below Whitehead. Okay, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Came from the Rabbitohs. Has played for Queensland as well, wasn't he, in 2020 in the Rando Queensland team that did still win the Origin. I think that he's going to go in to do the job.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a do the job sort of guy. I've got some high stakes on him. He's above average in all the attacking stats. He averages 12 runs per game, 104 meters per game, 1.42 offloads as well. Also topping up on the tries. Was this season one of his best seasons? I wouldn't say that far, but absolutely, definitely still a threat in attack. I'd probably put him above Jackson Ford because he has been there and done it, based on the do the job sort of vibe. And they also average about the same sort of attacking stats. Jackson Ford averaged 8 more tackles per game than him, but then again, Jaden Sewer had a bit more offloads, and they had the same tries as each other, despite Jaden Sewer playing 12 less games. So, less time to kind of work around. So, yeah, I'll be very interested to see where you'd put him.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with that kind of area. Jaden Sewer does have that Origin rep. Is still probably one of the more consistent and solid Dragons players, which you don't really see at the St. George Illawarra Dragons right now. Obviously, it's been a big struggle session for them. I'd be okay to put him below Egan, above Jackson Ford there. I wouldn't even mind, obviously, putting him just above Lemuelu and below Ford. But yeah, overall, he has done it for more years now than Jackson Ford. Everyone's got to remember Jackson had one massive year. Besides that, it's actually been quite underwhelming with him when he was at the Dragons. So we're putting him above Jackson Ford, below Egan Butcher.
Yep.
All right. Let's now go into a guy that was at the Rabbitohs, now is at the Newcastle Knights. It is Jed Cartwright. And I did see when I was looking at the potential team list and predicted team list, but they've actually got Jed Cartwright potentially starting for the Newcastle Knights this year in the back row, which I'm a little bit confused about because I don't think that Jed Cartwright is anywhere above not that great. I think he's been here for quite a few years now. I didn't see a great deal from him at the Rabbitohs, even though he was there for years. And I just would probably put him into the not that great category.
Yeah, I definitely have Dylan Lucas ahead of him on the selection table. I dare say I'd have Brodie Jones over him on the selection table as well. He did play 14 games this season for the Rabbitohs, all off the bench. He averaged 25 minutes on the field, so not even big minute time as well compared to the average bench second rower. All his stats were below average: 4 runs per game, 41 meters per game, 13 tackles per game. So really, I've got him, perfectly honest, probably below Fletcher Baker, but above Jackson Torpenay.
I'd probably look towards putting him above Fletcher Baker, below Ben Trbojevic. But with that being said, it doesn't really matter. Again, much for muchness, right? But I do think that he's still been a bit of a consistent part of the Rabbitohs off the interchange. And Oh yeah, like I don't understand why they had him as a potential starting back row. To be fair, but yeah, look, I'd personally put him above Fletcher Baker, but if you want to put him down, I'm okay.
I feel like Fletcher Baker's played more games, more minutes. He's been more on the field. I still think like whilst we don't hear too much about Fletcher Baker, I think he's definitely been having a bit more game time and more
I'm pretty
NRL
certain
experience
Jed
than
Cartwright
Jed.
was last in the back row team maker last year. I'm pretty certain.
He may
So
have been.
yeah,
He may have been. Because
yeah.
Jed, when you look at him, like obviously 14 games this season, he's going to need a big 2024. He's the same age as Jack Williams, same age as Jacob Host. He's only
Yeah.
played 31 games. Fletcher's played 45. He played almost more games this season than the last 4 seasons combined. So he definitely was a bit more frequent in the side, but once again, Jai Arrow out. They had a lot of injuries, the Rabbitohs, and that's why he kind of had his name in the team list each week. No offense to him, he definitely is the quality. These guys do it better than us. We'll say that up front, but I don't think he would have had that opportunity had there been had everyone been fit at the Rabbitohs.
No, I agree with you. All right, let's go now into the Cowboys, and we get to Jeremiah Nene, who a bit of a similar situation, I guess, with Hudson Young and also as Papali'i, who have had that massive, massive year, but wasn't able to go on with it. But I guess also that was just the Cowboys as well. You look at all their players, Ruben Cotter, Reece Robson, guys that didn't fall off last year, but definitely didn't have the same kind of impacts they did in 2022. Jeremiah Nene obviously has signed a good contract with the Cowboys there and is still definitely going to be, he's probably going to go into the exact same area, maybe in quality, but also didn't get anywhere near what you would have wanted out of him last year. Where would you look to be putting him in? I do think he's quality, but I'm more confident in Hudson Young and his Papali'i right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, IPAP and Huddy Young did have more runs per game. It's really tight there. Nanai, sorry, did have more run meters per game. Sorry, actually, flip that. Forget that I said that. I'm just looking at his bench stats. Let's look at his starting stats. Very disappointing. Nine runs per game below average. 90 meters per game below average. The only thing he was above average in was in tackle breaks and offloads. He's definitely dropped off that sphere. I think he still offers a bit more than Finn Diesel. But really disappointing season for Nanai. And I know he had injuries, only played 13 games compared to the full season last year, where he was scoring an amazing amount of tries for a second rower in that year. He had a David Fifita-like season, so to speak, in that 2022 season. But yeah, definitely off his game, and he needs to come back on the train, because obviously last year helped him stay in that starting position. But we got some really good players coming through that we haven't gotten to just yet in terms of Fanafeki. I think he's really good. Lukey's really good as well, and they're really pressing on that second row position. Of course, we still got Coen Hess, who can come off the bench and be that second row as well if his form slumps. So Nanai has slipped back. Just got him in between Huddy and Finn Diesel.
Yeah, and I think that, again, we'll see it this year, but I do think that by the end of the year, Bowie Fermor will be above him. I do think so. I think that if it wasn't for the injury, Bowie Fermor would be obviously higher up there. So, I think that Jeremiah Nene needs to do a lot this year. He needs to really bounce back. And it's funny that everyone obviously compares to David Fifita, right? Because you just see his Papali'i. He had like a David Fifita season at the Eels. And then obviously it's down here. You've got the same thing with Jeremiah Nene here. And look, it's going to be super interesting and I'd even say that the guy that will be compared with David Fifita in a second had that David Fifita-esque year last year. So it'll be interesting to see if he does it again going forward, but we'll get into him in a bit. So happy with the positioning there. All right, so we'll go. So wait, do we just agree that below Hudson Young, above Diesel?
Yep.
All right, sweet. Okay, we'll go now into Melbourne Storm, and it is Joe Chan, a guy that I know absolutely nothing about here. I think he's going to go straight into unproven.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got him above Brandon Tumeth and in between Sifakula. So absolutely one gamer, played 21 minutes, did make 6 runs, 71 run meters in that 21 minutes, which is quite astounding, as well as 10 tackles as well, but only one game to go off. Pretty much, let's move on and drop him in between Tumeth and Sifakula.
Let's move on. All right, we're going to the Titans here, and it is Joey Joe Simpson here, who came from the Doggies. For me, I actually think he's more of a rotation front row forward, and I do think that Desi's actually going to use him in that kind of capacity this year, because when we saw him in the preseason, he was playing off that bench. Obviously, Bowie Fermor, Dave Fifita were the guys in the preseason. Actually, I don't even think Bowie got there, but that was what it was going to be. And then, unfortunately, that injury came, and Simpson was thrown into that starting back row position. That I don't think he's that great, and I do think he'll be in the not that great category here. I think his defense, unfortunately, he doesn't have the engine to go as long as you need to as a starting back rower for mine. And I do think that he was a real tough worker and a hard worker, but not a starting back rower for mine. I'd be putting him as not that great category, but as a rotation bench front rower, love him.
Yeah, I think that he is best off the bench. I mean, he had the exact same numbers off the bench than he did as a starting second rower, and that's with literally 34 minutes less on the field. He averaged 6 runs, 48 meters, and that's literally consistent with his starting stats and his off the bench stats, which is crazy. Definitely a great defender, 31 tackles for the Titans there. But yeah, I've got him below Coen, Hess and in front of Billy Burns, purely because he did get that starting role and really cemented it. Didn't really get pushed down or pushed out of that starting right second rower. He did the job almost to say, was he the best? Was he a Beau Fermor? No, he wasn't, but he did fill the spot in there, and they didn't have to rotate that starting right second row too often, which is a credit to Joe. So yeah, I've got him in between Hess and Billy.
Yeah, I'm okay with that one. I wasn't exactly the biggest fan of the starting back row, but again, like just to reiterate for Joe, if you're watching, or just for for the viewers, I like him as a rotation bench front rower. I really do like him there. So hopefully Desi does use him in that capacity, and he probably would have been in the system at the Doggies when Desi was coaching the Dogs back in the day. Maybe I could be wrong, because Joe's 27 years old now, isn't he?
Yeah, he is getting on. He's getting on.
Yeah.
He's in that mid range.
100%. All right, let's go now into Johnny Bateman here for the West Tigers. Obviously, been around a little bit now. Went to the Super League. Was at Canberra at one stage. Actually, in 2019, he was at the Canberra Raiders. There was a quality. I actually really enjoyed him. I didn't enjoy him in 2023, but he's at the Tigers, and I do think that I think I'd probably put him into the top-ish end of do the job.
I actually had him at the top end of quality. I thought he had an amazing first season back.
I'll agree with you. Yeah.
He was above average for all the key stats. 13 runs per game, 110 run meters, 38 tackles per game. That's unheard of. 13 and 38. It's the highest run tackle combo of any starting second rower last season. So his work rate was so high across all of the attack and defense categories. So I thought John Bateman, yes, he was in a bad team, and that's probably why he didn't get the credit he deserved, but he worked his ass off for that Tigers side. And if he was with any other team above that top 8 side, top 8 end, he would have been second rower of the year and really gotten more the plaudits. But I thought he did absolutely brilliant job for the Tigers. Doesn't get the raps at all, but he was quite amazing.
No, I like that. I'm happy with that one. Maybe it was just the Tigers that was bringing it down for me. I did believe it. Like, honestly, I thought he had a better season than Papali'i last year. I really enjoyed watching what Johnny did. I just don't think that, I think maybe that was just the drop-off of Papali'i that didn't bring it. Like, who would you say had a better year in 2023?
Oh, easily John Bateman. Absolutely. He was brilliant.
That's why I think that we probably put him right at the top there, based off the fact that when he was at the Raiders as well, he was a quality. He was fantastic, and they got to the grand final. And then obviously now with the Tigers, he has been fantastic despite them being quite poor. And I think that just shows how poor their halves have been and their direction has been in general, because both their back rowers are still in the top end of the quality area, but yet the Tigers are again last in 2023. So they just need to adjust that halves, and maybe you'll get a lot more out of this team. So are you agreeing with me that John Bateman at the top?
Yep, John Bateman at the top. I think like 2-year break as well from in Super League, and to be able to put up those numbers, 38 tackles, his best average tackles, and his best tackle efficiency at 95% for that too. So got to put him up top. Got to respect the man.
Beautiful. All right. I reckon there will be pushback on that, to be honest with you, but I think that's not people looking at the stats. I think that's just people looking at the Tigers and saying, oh, what's Johnny Bateman? What's she talking about? But if you actually listen to what we said, I think you'll understand and you'll appreciate it. All right, we'll go to the Raiders now. Jordan Martin, another guy I don't really know anything about. Do you have anything on him? Otherwise, we'll just chuck him straight into unproven.
I think I put him at the back of unproven, to be honest, because, he hasn't debuted yet. No stats to really go off.
Absolutely. All right, let's go now to the Brisbane Broncos. Let's see if I can go through without putting the Broncos down. But it is Jordan Reggie Dog. Look, I think he was. I'll say this, and this is not out of bias. It's not out of dislike of the Broncos, right? Jordan Ricky is a solid player, and I did see quality spurts out of him, but I just don't. The Broncos fan base talks about him like he's elite. And there's absolutely 0% chance that I'm going to put him into elite category alongside Fifita, Olakau'atu, Nikora, and the guys that are to come, right? But I do think that he's probably in quality, but am I crazy to think that he's not as good as people make him out to be?
Yeah, I've got him at the top of do the job, to be honest. Averages
like
8 runs per game, 80 meters per game, and 31 tackles, which is a right on average for tackles. But other than that, he's below in runs and run meters and post contact meters. He's not really above any average for a second rower outside of that defense, which he's bang on the right. When he's in space, he's a good looking bloke. That's why eyes go on him, and he's the most amazing player in the world. And every hot person needs to be told that. They're more than just hot. So, I think Jordan Ricky, great player. Jordan Ricky, great player. Is he quality? I just don't think so just yet, but he's definitely, I think we had him lower last season. I think he's definitely moved up, and he's definitely knocking on the door of quality, but just not there yet, but definitely top of do the job. I think he's better than Bryce and anyone else on that list.
Yeah, I'm happy with that because I was still considering to potentially put him as the lower end of quality, but I just don't see him as the guy that gets made out in the media and gets made out in the fan base. And I do think that's because it is the Broncos with a large fan base who does really kind of shove it down your throat. And as you said, yeah, he is a good-looking bloke, right? So it definitely does get a lot more positive press than many others. But yeah, happy to put him into the top end of do the job and need to see, I guess, he just show us more in turn 24. But the Broncos are a very interesting predicament, in my personal opinion. But okay, this is going to be a surprise for you, I reckon, where I'm going to put this next guy. Josh Schuster for the Manly Seagulls. I'm going to let you have your say first. And regardless of what you say, I will still tell you where I was considering, but obviously I will come down to wherever you may put him in the back row.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a tough one for me looking at him as a back rower, I guess, rather than a playmaker. I actually think he actually suits back row a bit better. I think he's got more try assists and line break assists to prove that, which is very interesting as well. I'm just getting up his positional stats here because he didn't start as second row. But yeah, when you look at him, he runs the ball obviously 4 times more, double meters per game. And even when you look at the averages, like he's played about the same amount of games at 5'8" and second row. He does have a bit more try assists, but he definitely has more line breaks as a second rower than he does as a 5'8". He also has about the same amount of offloads as well. When you look at him in a defensive perspective, he averages 26 tackles as a starting second rower, which is still below the usual average, and an 88% tackle rate, which is a bit bad. But his errors are also up as well. 21 errors in 19 games for a second rower. You don't usually see second rowers have a really high error count. So for me, I'm picking Jordan Ricky. I'm picking Bryce Cartwright, Angus Crichton over Josh Schuster as a second rower. I'd probably have him around Elsie Katoa, Elliot Whitehead standard. Where were you thinking?
That's exactly where I was thinking, man. I thought I was going to have to fight because obviously in the back row, people are going to look at him in the halves, right? They're going to say, because he pushed out Fozza, went into the 5'8", didn't obviously live up to the expectations there. People are going to look at him and say, oh, not that great, because he wasn't great when it came to the 5'8". But when it was the back row, I thought he was quite a solid player. I'm not thinking on the quality level. I'm not thinking that area, but I do think that he has the potential to be in the quality section. Obviously, if you remove those errors and get a bit more consistency in that back row, and great fantasy player when it came to in the back row as well. So something to consider there, guys. We'll do a fantasy video a little bit later on. But yeah, I'm happy to put him. I'd be happy to put him into, and I think coming back from the fact that he was that 5'8", I would put him below Eli Katoa right this very second. But I do want to put him up that top end, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when he has the ball in hand and he's got the opportunity, sorry, to revolutionize the second row position. And we saw locks once a time were just one-dimensional players, basically middle forwards just taking a carry. And now that you've seen the Isaiah Yo's, the Paddy Carrigans, who have completely changed the game and become ball-playing locks. And now all of a sudden, 5'8" can be locks, and
Yeah.
start being that extra ball player. He can be that person on the edge and be that second 5'8" to
This
Luke
is the
Brooks and provide a
video.
bit more quality.
This is the video to refocus everybody in making sure that the lock is considered a spine position nowadays. It is a spine position nowadays comparatively to the past, in my personal opinion. Would you disagree with me?
No, I think it's definitely a part of the spine now. I think it's
Yeah.
a massive part, and I think the price for a lock has definitely gone up when you see these new guys coming through. And you can look at Cam Murray as well. You can throw his name into the ring,
Yeah.
and like seeing the top five back rowers,
Big
sorry, locks,
Tino in
Big
the lock as
Tino,
well.
absolutely. Like they just provide something a bit more when they do give that pass off rather than just taking the carry because that's just
Yeah.
predictable.
Yeah, 100%, man. No, I think, yeah, absolutely. I might even film a separate video on, yeah, we need to include the lock as an official spine position. But then again, you'll get all the old heads saying, don't bloody change. Anyway, bloody over the old heads. But there you go. Yeah, happy to. So we're putting him below Eli Katoa, yeah?
Yeah.
Now, that's a concerning yet. Tell me where you'd put him.
No, no, no. I would put him. Put him below Katoa and
I've
put
been
him
in
and
here
above
with you
Whitehead.
for I've been here with you for 2 hours, and you think I don't know the tone in that yet. I'm thinking that there's a you were thinking maybe above, you were thinking above Katoa, weren't you?
I was at one stage. I'm not gonna lie, I was, but it's okay now. It's all good.
All right. Well,
I'm okay with that.
we'll leave it there for now.
Okay.
All right. We'll go to Kai Pearce-Paul now, who's a new guy over from the Super League. Obviously, killed it for England in the World Cup. But then again, the Poms, they always know how to throw it all away when it counts. Look at the Ashes and look at the World Cup and look at every single sport in the world. But Kai Pearce-Paul is someone I'm really excited to see at Newcastle Knights, but absolutely will go into the unproven category because he has not played a single game of NRL talent, and this is obviously NRL. Otherwise, guys like Johnny Bateman who did it in the Super League would have to account for that. But we don't necessarily watch the Super League like everybody else does. We can't account for that. So I'd put him into unproven. I would put him at the top of unproven, though. I think that he's obviously played for England, so I think he has to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a no-brainer. He's got to be the top of unproven for sure. I think he can provide definitely a bit of two. He has come from a centre background, so it'll be really interesting to see how he goes at second row. Wherever he gets that starting spot, I'm not too sure. I think he'll just come off the bench to start. But it'll be an interesting experiment.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, well, Kai Pearce-Paul done. We go now to Carl Lawton for Manly, who has been around for a very long time now. I think that he's going to go into that not that great category. I think he's had enough time. I don't think that he's terrible by any means. I think that he still does a job technically, but I think that he's probably amongst that not that great category.
Yeah, I've got him just above Jackson Topine here. He averaged 3 runs per game last season, 26 run meters and 13 tackles in about 23 minutes of footy across 9 games. So all off the bench. Personally, I'd still pick Ben Trbojevic, Jed Cartwright, and Fletcher Baker over him.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with that one. All right, well, we'll just quickly jump straight then into a Keon Koloamatangi here for the South Sydney Rabbitohs, who, for me, when you think of Koloamatangi, you're thinking of Olakau'atu, you're thinking of Briton Nikora, you're thinking that category for mine. Where you'd put him is, each of their own. I personally would put Koloamatangi. Where do I put him with those two guys there? It's a bit of a muchness for mine. Koloamatangi, I would put underneath Olakau'atu, above Briton Nikora, but I await to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Just putting up a massive comparison here now, just to see, because I'm in the same spot as you. Looking at his stats, he does average more runs than Olakau'atu and Nikora. Averages the more run meters than those players as well. Is a bit lower on the post contact meters compared to Olakau'atu, but definitely does average more tackles per game than Olakau'atu. But Nikora has him covered for tackles per game as well. In terms of tackle breaks and offloads, he's below average for each of those. And then obviously in tries and line breaks, he's also below those players. So I would almost put him in between Olakau'atu and Nikora, but it's so close. These three are basically the same player.
That's what I was going to say. I think
in
this is
terms
completely
of their stats.
Yeah, I think it completely comes down to each person's perspective, realistically, and that's me talking to you guys, the viewers at home. I think that really comes down to like your perspective. I personally have Olakau'atu above Kelamatangi and then Nikora. I think Rando is probably on a similar level here, but with that being said, like Kelamatangi did obviously make Origin over Olakau'atu. Brett Nikora does play for New Zealand, and Olakau'atu, was he Samoa or Tonga?
Both of them play for Tonga, Kelamatangi and
there you go. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So like completely, they're on top of each other, man. But yeah, that's a hard one there. But I would personally go Olakau'atu, Kelamatangi, and Nikora, and you were agreeing with that, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Let's go into the Parramatta of the Squeals, Kelma Tuolangi, who was obviously at Manly. Was a fine player. I think that it's going to be hard for him to really prove himself with the Eels with, Sean Lane, who we'll get to in a bit, and also my mind is blanking on their other back row right now. Is it probably Ryan Matter? No, he would be Bryce Cartwright. Yeah, we've already spoken about him as well. But Ryan Matter usually comes off the bench. He's a bit later on. But coming to Alongi, I think he's going to go into the do the job category. I think that's what we put him last year. And I'm pretty happy to put him again. Where would I put him, though? And the other reason I'm going to say this is because I want to see what the stats say after I say this. Where would I put Kelma Tuolangi? I would probably put him around. I probably personally, off opinion alone, I'd put him above Piakura, below Lemuelu.
Yeah, I think I'd put Kelma probably around there. I'd probably have Piakura above Kelma, to be honest. I'd put him above Dylan Lucas though, because he has got that game experience. 15 games last season, averaged 62 minutes when starting, 8 runs per game, 77 run meters, some really high post contact meters of 31 and tackles 25. But still more or less below average for a second rower. I think that really I'd be leaning down probably between Lukey and Bullimore, in my personal opinion. I think that if Tuolangi was still at Manly, I'd still think Waddell would overtake him on positional placement, and I still think if Tuolangi went to the Cowboys, he'd be behind Lukey in the second row stocks as well. So that's where I'm thinking. I don't think he had a great season. I don't think it was his season at Manly was a success.
Yeah, I agree. I would probably put him still above Lukey for the time being, but then again, are you confident that you would say Lukey is above Tuolangi? Like, are you confident in it?
Yeah, let me I'll just get up the comparison between these two players as well. While we're here. So where did that go? Here they are. So basically they both run for the same amount of runs per game. Lukey averages 10 more meters per game. He's definitely behind in tackles and post contact meters, but he's definitely got that extra tackle breaks and offloads compared to Tuolangi as well. So they're definitely tick for tack, probably beside each other. I'm happy to put Tuolangi above Lukey.
I don't think it really matters, to be honest with you, man.
They're basically putting up the exact same stats.
You're a Cowboys fan, man. We'll put Lukey above him. I think it's tick for tack, you know what I'm saying? As you said. Well, it's like if there's a Titans play here and it's a 50-50, I'm going to say, let's put the Titans player above it. I'm happy to do that with the Cowboy as well, So, I will put Tuolangi there below Hein Lukey. All right, let's go now into the Dolphins, and it is Kenny Bromwich here, who has just been around for a very long time at the Melbourne Storm. Obviously, the Kiwis. He's a very, very experienced player. Don't know if he's anywhere near the player that he used to be, but I do think that he's still a part of that do the job category.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's the average second rower, starting second rower. He's putting up the same amount of stats as them. 11 runs per game, 95 meters per game, 33 tackles per game, all right on the average for an NRL player. For me, I think his experience speaks words, and I think he's probably above Jordan Ricky. I'd probably select him above Jordan Ricky if I was
Ooh.
looking at the New Zealand side. Yeah, I definitely think that Kenny's got that extra bit of experience behind him. He's won premierships. He's definitely got a bit of credentials.
Yeah, I would agree with that one. I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, I don't know because he's definitely been quality. Like that's why I was bringing him down from, right? Because he was in quality previously. I don't think that he is in quality anymore based on the age factor. Do I put him above Jordan Rick Dog? Yeah, I would. Yeah, look, if obviously based off of age you're taking Ricky, but if you're taking a draft based off of what you've seen, I guess the prime version of what you've seen so far from both these guys, I am taking Kenny. Plus, also, yeah, that experience does speak volumes. I know Broncos fans are going to cry in the comments about Jordan Ricky, man. I just absolutely know it. But at the same sense, go back and have a listen to what we have to say, and you'll understand it. And base off the experience and the quality, yeah, Kenny Bromwich is the guy there. So we'll put him at the
Exactly,
top.
and yeah, put on the top as well. And I think if the Broncos are going to have a cry, these are just the numbers that
Yeah,
Kenny Bromwich, he averaged more runs per game, more run meters per game, and more tackles per game than Jordan
wow,
Ricky in
we
2023. So there you go, Broncos fans. You can't stats
get
don't
into him,
lie,
mate.
as I say.
Get
Stats just
into
don't
him,
lie.
mate. Rip into him. I love it. Get
Boom.
into him, man. Don't take that, Broncos fans. But all right, we'll now move into the best half in the business. The best half in the business. Khalees Haas here for the Gold Coast Titans. I might let you have a go with this one here, man. Obviously, I'm quite close with Khalees. I think that if he continues to do those tries like he did against Panthers, that was absolutely brilliant. The way that he stepped around Dylan Edwards there, I know we lost, okay, quite considerably, but I do think that, look, I think that Khalees for me I'd still personally consider for that unproven category. I don't think he's had enough minutes yet, but I would understand if you want to put him into a certain category. I would understand where you want to put him.
Yeah, I think that his numbers weren't too great. He played 15 games this season, so a bit past the proven stage. But in those games that he started at second row, he only averaged 5 runs per game and that's with a 75-minute average minutes. He averaged 50 meters per game, 31 tackles as well, which is right on the average. But yeah, just not really giving much in the attacking sphere. He did have average 2 tackle breaks and 1.13 offloads, which is a little bit, but still below the average of a starting second rower. I think 15 games is, to me, a bit above proven, especially when 8 of them were starting at second row. I still think, I think that he's probably around that Dan Russell, Jack Gajewski sort of category, and obviously he's young. It was his first season, so plenty to improve
Yeah.
here. Not an insult to him whatsoever. You got to start somewhere. I think he is still better, and I think he still gets the role ahead of Jed Cartwright if he was at the Knights. Definitely think he gets the role ahead of Ben Trbojevic, Brodie Jones, and Ben Murdoch-Masila if he was at the Dragons and the Seagulls and Newcastle too. So I think that he definitely has potential, but
I
yeah, his
was
stats just don't match
personally,
up.
yeah, look, I know I agree with you, and that's why I kind of am happy to put him where you want to put him because obviously I don't want my bias to come through in that situation. So that's why I'd listen to you here. I would still personally, and the only thing that as well can't put him above Stimo is that Stimo was actually starting for the Titans over Cleese. It was his first year, and usually this is the thing. Usually we go via 20 games in the proven, but with that being said, I agree with you that we can put him into that not that great category. I know Cleese has a lot of potential. I personally would put him just below Stimson based off of what you said.
I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to do that. To be fair, Dylan Lucas only played 7 games and we put him in the do the job category as well.
Yeah,
So
you're
we've
right.
definitely
You're right.
definitely
Yeah.
progressed a few different players depending. Jacob Preston, for instance, first season as well, same amount of games in the do the job category. I just don't
These
think
lists are
Cleese is
hard,
at
man.
that level. Yeah,
These lists are
these
hard
lists
to
are
do,
tough.
man.
They're going to break your heart. They're going to break your heart.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's so hard doing this as well when you know these boys. Like you don't want to you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings because that's not why we do this. Why we do this is because it's interesting. We're talking footy, and obviously, we are comparing. But when you know them, it's like it hits different. So that's why when it comes to like, and I know, like, guys, I will also say this: like, I'm realistic when it comes to my Titans. Like, obviously, I'm passionate and I am devoted to the club. But with that being said, like, I am still very aware of where these guys are. That's why I said to Rando, look, I know you probably want to put him into a category here, and I knew it was going to be not that great category. But yeah, just to go over that, love Cleese, but I'm very understanding of kind of where Rando has decided to put him there. And I've had to bump him up just a little bit, just a little bit based on Rando. But all right, let's move now into Kulakefu Pua'Avase for the Cowboys. Your guy here. Young guy, did he get enough time last year? I'm not too sure. I don't think so.
He did play 12 games, so around that Cleese Haas sort of value, and similar stats to Cleese as well. In fact, Cleese actually had better stats.
Here we go. Let's fight for this one. Let's fight for this one.
Averaging 20 more tackles. Absolutely. Sure thing. But yeah, absolutely. Obviously, only averaged 25 minutes per game, so much less game time than Cleese. So I'm happy to put him. If I'm putting Cleese in the not that great, I'm happy to put Farnafeki in that not that great category as well, but proven. I think he's better than Jack Gajewski. So I'd probably have him like between Dan Russell and Jack Gajewski, to be honest. I think Dan Russell, he started more games, and in defense he was a stalwart, and in attack. So I'm happy to keep Dan Russell ahead, and I think Billy Burns and Dan Russell would start ahead of Farnafeki.
So yeah, you cut out a little bit there, but yeah, I'm not sure if it's Finifaki or Finifaki or Finifaki. Sorry, guys.
I think it's Finifaki. I haven't been listening to Andrew Voss in a while, so please bear in mind.
Yeah, well, that's fine. Obviously, we try our best, guys, to get their pronunciations correctly, but it's also quite difficult. So you do have to give us a bit of a leeway. But no, the sound is good now. Sorry, we didn't even actually completely decide that. I was actually going to be happy to put him alongside Cleese.
Yeah, I'm happy with that too. I think they're two young and up and coming players, and definitely we'll be talking about them in the quality category in years to come. For now, they're just starting out. And you don't start at the top, mate. You don't start at the top as a starting second row. You got to work your way up.
Absolutely.
And at the moment, I think that they're down towards that lower end. But a year, 2 years time, we could be talking about them in the do your job quality category. Right. So I'm excited to see both players go on. I'm not looking at them going like, we'll see them drop out. I think they will become starting second rowers in years to come.
Absolutely. I agree with that one. Cleese, again, best house in the business, baby. All right. Cool. I was about to say cool again for Funafuaki because I said Cleese and then went to here. Guys, we've been going for 2 hours. Give us a break. All right. We've got Kurt Capewell here for the New Zealand Warriors, obviously coming across from the Brisbane Broncos. Was originally at the Sharkies, then went to the Panthers, then to the Broncos, and now at the Wars. I think that he is a very, very solid player. I think that, and this is how I explain Kurt Capewell, he's one of those guys who is a bare basic quality player. Like, he's a quality player, but bare basic because he doesn't give you that X factor, but is still very, very solid. That's why he plays for Queensland. A very interesting one. I think that he's probably going to go into that similar category around the Kenny Bromwiches, the Bryce Cartwrights and whatnot. I can't put him. For me, when I look at a back rower, I need X factor, and that's what brings him down for me. I just need that Dave Fifita, Kolomatangi, Isaiah Papali'i, Olakau'atu kind of X factor, Beau Fermor, just that can provide that big moment. And I just don't see Kurt Capewell really providing that big moment X factor wise. Would you disagree with what I'm saying?
No, absolutely not. And I think it shows in his stats as well. They're about the same for tackle breaks, him and Jordan Riki. Jordan Riki actually averages less offloads as well. Between those two, they literally have the exact same stat line of 9 runs per game and 80 meters gained. And they've also got 30 and 31 tackles per game as well together. So they're legit the exact same player. Believe it or not, Kurt Capewell does average more tackle breaks and offloads than Jordan Riki, which absolutely shocked me. It's not a great amount, don't get me wrong, but if we're looking at numbers and seeing who's just ahead of each other, they're about They're literally about the same. They'd be the same rating on Rugby League 5 when that comes out in 2042. Yeah.
In 2042. Mate, we're going to get GTA 6 before we get Rugby League 5, mate.
It's crazy.
So...
Wild times.
Let's stop this GTA 6 and I was going to say, wow, we got it before Rugby League 5, Rugby League Live 5, because that's taken forever. Will we ever get it?
That is.
But
I know. But in fairness, Kurt Capewell, I think, would just be above Ricky. Premiership winner, Origin winner. I know Ricky can't win an Origin, but I just think that Queensland lead, I don't think Kurt Capewell will ever be an Australian. Would he represent New Zealand before Ricky? I would dare say he would have if he had New Zealand eligibility.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. Well, at the beginning, I hate to shock you here, but I actually had Kurt Capewell above Ricky, below Kenny Bromwich from the start of when you were saying that. So I'm glad that you've kind of just completely and utterly agreed with where I dropped him there. But yeah, no, I agree. Obviously, he's got that Origin rep, and I don't want to say something that's going to disrespect Kiwis here, but I'm gonna say something that I feel needs to be said. I do look at Origin rep over New Zealand rep. I will be honest with you, and I know that the Kiwis beat the Australians 30-0 in one game a week after they got flogged in the previous one. Mind you, we'll just pretend we forget that one. Like that didn't happen the week before. But you know, I do. Do you actually? I'm going to ask you this question. Do you prefer Origin caliber or New Zealand caliber?
It depends. It depends on a few players. Like if you're looking at historically the Benji Marshalls, the Jerome Hughes. I look at players and go, would they be named in the Queensland side if they had the opportunity? Good point.
Yeah,
I think Queensland. I think State of Origin is still the peak. I know New Zealand absolutely flogged us in the last game we played against them.
I think at the end of the day, right? I think at the end of the day, when Origin is Australia, and Australia has won 1 million World Cups, and I think that's probably where it comes from. I know that there are some players, but the guys like a Jerome Luai and Stephen Crichton who are playing for Samoa and guys who play for Tonga and all these kind of lads, that's you can't obviously play for New Zealand and England. My brain's fried right now, so I'm trying to figure out kind of what I'm making the point of here. But the point that I think I'm trying to make is that because they are qualifying for Australia effectively, that's maybe why I say, and Origin is the peak of the game. Like, let's be honest. Do you know what I'm saying? Am I making sense?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. I think it's hard to... I think the international game has come leaps and bounds. If you asked me this question 5 years ago, 100% hands down Origin, I think international footy has really caught up. We're seeing Tonga beat Australia. We're seeing New Zealand will absolutely pull our pants down in Hamilton. So we are seeing that different. But not to forget that before that 30-0, 36-0 thumping, we did beat them 32-16 as well. So it's pretty inconsistent. And we've even seen New South Wales during those bad years beat Queensland on the odd occasion by a fair amount as well. So
I don't know if I've ever seen that before, mate. That's ridiculous notion.
We forget that. We forgive and forget. Selective memory, us Queenslanders. But yeah, I think I do think that Origin is just the pinnacle, but I think international footy is catching up. So when I do look at an Origin win versus a Tri Nations win, I do think an Origin win is better on the resume than a Trans-Tasman win.
Yeah, I'll agree with
you. I mean,
like,
if you say Australia wins the Trans-Tasman trophy, you wouldn't think anything about it. New Zealand winning it is a huge deal, of course.
Don't we know it now?
That is massive. Yeah, we feel it. We feel it.
All right, well, let's
trophy that too. Anyway,
let's move now into where are we? Lachlan Fitzgibbon here for the Newcastle Knights.
I do want to say that he's not with the Knights anymore.
Oh, he's not.
He's not playing in 2024. He's off to the English Super League.
Oh well, there you go. So I guess we'll just put it. But let's just quickly bang. Where are you putting him? Don't even need to explain it. Just where you putting him.
I would put Lachlan Fitzgibbon. He's got the exact same stats as Kurt Capewell, so I'd probably put him behind, probably above. Oh fuck! Where would I put him? I'd probably put him between Crichton and Katoa. That's a tough one. Katoa, I think.
I was going to put Katoa above him.
Better. Where are you putting them?
I'll put Katoa above him. Above
I'd probably put him. Yeah. I'm happy with that.
I wouldn't even care to put. I'd even put Schuster above him, but We won't even talk about it. Doesn't matter if we kind of whatever. We'll just chuck him below
No,
Katoa
doesn't
and
matter.
above Schuster just because he's not actually playing for the Knights anymore. So get out of here, mate. Gee whiz, how do you get your way into here? How do you weasel your way into this list? All right, we'll go now into Liam Martin for the Penrith Panthers. This is a guy that obviously we've been referring to quite a lot throughout this video so far. I think he had an unbelievable year. I think that Liam Martin, I've been saying for so long, has been a solid player that deserves more respect and is underrated. But I do think that he got to a point where, saying he's better than Dave Fifita is just getting to a point where he's a tad overrated. But for so long, I'd been saying that Liam Martin deserves a lot more respect. So I am very happy with it. And the same thing happens with Dylan Edwards. It took a long time for him to get that rap as well. And then Edwards started to get a little bit overrated in comparison to probably where he should have been. But overall, still think they're both phenomenal players. Liam Martin, second best backer on the competition. Wouldn't you disagree with me?
I think that in terms of what he's done in the game, obviously won all those premierships and just his stand in terms of New South Wales, he's definitely elite statistically, and I get this pushback a lot. He doesn't put up the same amount of numbers as other players in his category.
I don't want to disrespect Liam Martin by clapping here, but I've got to clap here because I've had to defend Dave's name from Liam Martin for a year now, and I'm so glad I've got you on for this, man. Keep going.
Because, I think when you look at it, he averages less minutes than I've taken out. Because I've got him actually towards the back end of quality. I've got him above Nanai. That was how far back I had him. When you look at his minutes, he averages less minutes than your Huddy Youngs, your Papali'is, your Batemans, your Kafusis. In terms of runs, he averages less runs than all of those players, less run meters, of course, at the back end. And even in tackles, averages less tackles than most of those players except for Kafusi and Nanai. We're seeing Huddy Young run more, tackle more. Same with IPAP, same with John Bateman. In terms of tackle breaks, Liam Martin does have the upper hand against those players. In terms of offloads, he's one of the lowest as well. So there's fors and against here. I know Liam Martin is praised among many statistically. I still stand by myself and the stats. And just the numbers just don't equate of a normal second row. And that's because he doesn't have that 80-minute performance in him. He does put it all in the tank in that 71-minute performance. It's an interesting one for me. I don't see him as an elite second rower. I see him as a high quality second rower.
I will put him at the top of quality, and I will agree with you because this is something that I've thought for a little bit now, but I do think that stint that he comes on is incredible. I think that when he comes in off the bench, he is brilliant. But I absolutely agree with everything you've just said, and I've noticed it, but I don't know if I've had the balls to actually come out and admit to that, if you know what I'm saying. Like, because there's such an overwhelming amount of gigantic support for the quality player that he is, I've always felt that it's completely disrespectful to Dave that he's always been brought up there. If I'm taking a draft tomorrow, I am taking Kolomatangi and Olakau'atu above him. And I probably am taking Nikora too, but that's because of the X factor there. Liam Martin's not really an X factor guy. He's just an incredible. He is still I can't put him anywhere lower than the top of quality. I am still taking him over Bateman. I still probably would take. I don't know. Papali'i is an interesting one there. But I personally would take him over Hudson Young right now based off of what I've seen, just because I think that he does give you that real hard edge. Liam Martin, really solid edge. But yeah, I agree with you, man. So we're going to put him at the top of quality.
Yeah, I'm happy for that. And you're exactly right. When he does come off the bench, he almost provides the same stats in half the time. He's averaging 9 runs. So yeah, he averages, as I mentioned, 71 minutes when he starts, 37 off the bench. He averages 10 runs per game as he starts. He averages 9 runs per game off the bench. He's a bit lower in meters gained. Same post-contact meters per game. Obviously, tackles are a bit lower. But in terms of average tackle breaks and offloads, he actually averages more offloads off the bench than he does starting. So he's got a little bit more X factor, and he definitely puts in for that lower amount of minutes. He definitely tapers it back, and we've seen it, and it's a common thing when you look at a player's bench stats versus the players' starting stats, that they're actually more similar, despite the massive degree of less minutes. But they've got to play for that full 80 minutes. So they definitely take it down a notch and not get as active. Whereas when they've got the mentality that they're only going to be on for half a game, they take a different approach to it and definitely probably put in a bit more impact. So in saying that, yeah, I understand what you're saying. When he's off the bench, he's a beast because he knows that he's got that time there and he's very time efficient from what you can see statistically. But yeah, as an 80-minute second rower, he just doesn't put up the same amount of numbers we're seeing from the Huddy Youngs, from the David Fifitas, and I didn't even get into that elite category, but they definitely do perform a lot better than Liam Martin.
Yeah. I think there'll be quite a significant amount of pushback, but in the same sense, you understand that. I understand that. I'm happy. I agree with you based off of what you've just said. And I think that, yeah, it's going to be a bit of a, and this is what I'm saying, and that's what I referred to as well with Liam Martin, that could last year have really been that year, like the Jeremiah Nene, like the Isaiah Papali'i, where they had that big year. But then again, he is at the Panthers still, so I can't see the Panthers dropping off, but I just kind of had that similar comparison there. So I like that. It's great to see that we've got someone here who really does understand that Dave is the clear and defined best backer on the game. But yeah, I'm interested to see how the comments are going to be on that one. But you have a lot of balls to come out and say that, to be honest with you, because there is just an overwhelming amount of support for him being number one, which is crazy to me. But all right, let's move now into Luciano Leilua for the Cowboys. Take the floor, man. This is your team. Let us know your thoughts.
And this is just not a non-bias, especially off the back of what I just said about Liam Martin. But I do think Luciano Leilua is on the higher side of quality here.
Oh.
Averaged 12 runs per game, 111 meters per game, 44 post-contact meters per game, and 25 tackles per game. The first three were above average for a starting second rower. Also has that X factor for tackle breaks and offloads. To put in perspective, he ran the ball two more times per game than Liam Martin, ran for 10 more meters than Liam Martin, had 12 more post-contact meters per game than Liam Martin. And obviously, in terms of defense, was 4 tackles behind in that. Tackle breaks down by 1, but also had more offloads than Liam Martin. So for me, Luciano Leilua, he's definitely up there. Whether you put him in between Liam Martin and John Bateman, I'm happy to do that if Liam Martin's going to be the anchor, the top of quality. But I think statistically, Luciano Leilua, he gets slept on because we did miss him in the first part of the season when he wasn't playing. And then, boom, he comes back in. We win 7 straight in a row. Obviously, we don't talk about the end of the season in Cowboy land. Something happened in the time space continuum during those last 5 rounds.
I'll talk about the back end of the season as a Titans fan because we're the ones who really hurt the Cowboys, to be honest with you. But
really derailed us. Really put a stick in the railway.
Yeehaw, baby!
Flipped us.
Yeehaw! But what I would push back on the Luciano Leilua is that I definitely had him in quality. I personally wouldn't have him as high as you've put him, but with that being said, I do understand why you've done that. I do think that he is liable for like penalties. I think that's something that. Do you have the stats there for his penalty count?
I can definitely take a look into it while you talk.
Yeah, I personally would, like, if I'm taking a draft tomorrow, I'm taking Papali'i over him. I would put him above. Would I take Hudson Young above him? I don't know. Like, if I'm taking personally, just based off of opinion and just looking at players, I probably would look towards Hudson Young. But I do think that Luciano Leilua has proven a lot more to me than Jeremiah Nene has. So I would put him definitely above Nene. But again, when it comes down to that draft, I just feel like every time I watch him, he is liable for a penalty or a mistake or an error. I don't know what it is. Maybe that's just from his Tigers days too, or is just, I don't know. There's just something about Luciano that I don't feel like can go above Papali'i.
Fair enough. I don't see him too high up on this. He's on the top 50 at least for ruck infringements, or we'll look at the full-arm penalties.
Would that maybe come down in minutes as well, though?
I'm looking at the average penalties, and he doesn't rank in the top 50. So don't know where this yarn's coming from, but maybe.
Well, as a Cowboys fan, do you understand kind of where I'm coming from there, though?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely some errors in his game that he needs to fix up, but yeah, I don't mind pinning him back a fair bit. He definitely doesn't get talked about as much. I think he's underrated. in
How
terms of
about
what he
we put
does
him above
statistically and
Hudson
what he
Young?
provides for the Cowboys.
What about we put him above Hudson Young, below
I'm happy to put him
Papali'i?
just above. I'm happy to put him below. I'm happy to put him below Hudson Young for the time being. I think he's got one more season to prove
Okay.
his quality worth. I think ever since coming to the Cowboys, he's kind of stepped up a bit and become a bit more noticed. So yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
maybe it's
see.
just that 1 year kind of thing that we need to see it again, because obviously he was at the Tigers, and I do think that we can
Yeah.
see it again. So, again, I would be happy to put him above Hudson, but there's just that something there. So it'll be interesting next year. It'll be interesting next year. It definitely can go up there. Alfred gets another chance to prove himself. All right, we've got the Luke Garner here for the Panthers. I think, has there been some news that he might be going elsewhere recently? Or is that somebody? No, Zac Hosking is the one I'm thinking about there.
Zac Hosking, he went, yeah.
Yeah, so Luke Garner, I don't think he had the season that we all thought he could have come from the Tigers. We're really looking forward to seeing what Luke Garner could do with the Panthers, but I just don't think that he really lived up to it.
Yeah, I don't think he was too crash shot. I thought he was really good for the Tigers and was going to probably be a breakout player for the Panthers, but he just really couldn't cement his spot in the starting second row. He definitely had the first crack at it. And then we saw Zac Hosking kind of come through and take over from there. He had 4 starting second row. Saw it 4 starts at second row, averaged around 54 minutes, which is really low for a starting second rower. Obviously 8 runs per game, 80 meters per game. So not really too big a stats, 27 tackles per game as well. And interchange still didn't really make much of an impact. 24 minutes per game, averaging 5 runs per game, and 12 tackles. So really nothing to kind of give. He did average 4 tackle breaks at starting second row, which is fairly high. But yeah, nothing too much to ride home. I've got him at the pearly end of do the job. Probably just above CHN, or maybe no. Actually, I probably have him at the bottom of do the job. Started not that great.
Yeah, I'd put him above Walker. I put him above Walker because Walker, it's not his position, right? He's mainly front row, or he's mainly, but just simply he's off the bench. He doesn't really have a position per se. So I would personally put Luke Garner probably above Walker based on the fact that it is his pure position. But with that being said, Dylan Walker probably does provide a bit more versatility. But would you push back on me putting him above Walker?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
All right, we'll chuck him into there. Okay, now we get to back to the Warriors here, and there's Nikora, who came across from the Eels. I thought he was fine. I think that he's probably going to go straight into the do the job category. Where do you think in the do the job category, if that's what you're putting in?
Yeah, I think I'm looking towards probably around that Elise Katoa, Lachlan Fitzgibbon sort of business. I think he's around that sort of vibe. He had the most sin bins last season. So the naughtiest player, regardless of what position. 21 games starting second row, 10 carries per game, 92 meters and 26 tackles, which is below average on all accounts. But yeah, I just think
was it a 1 year kind of thing though at the Wires as well, with how good they were?
Exactly. You got to think about that as well. Where are you thinking by saying that?
I don't know. I'm feeling like I'm not opposed to putting him literally in between Eli Katoa and Fitzgibbon. But I also think that maybe that recency bias with how good the Warriors were, because the Warriors could do the exact same thing as the Cowboys, right? And I posted a video about this literally 2 days ago, the other day when I was at the Heat game. I said, the Warriors are a team that have a lot of actual consistencies with how that Cowboys team went from 2021 to 2022 and then to 2023. Nikora didn't really get anything going when he was at the Eels, and then has been kind of fine at the Warriors. Nothing spectacular, but still did a decent enough job. I'd probably put him around that Egan Bush and Jacob Preston area.
Yeah, absolutely. To be fair, he put up about the same numbers for the Eels last season. Played less games, still had the same amount of offloads, had a lesser tackle efficiency this season, and had the exact same average run meters as well, around that 94 meter mark. So basically similar seasons to last season. I'm happy to push him back down. I still think I'd pick him above Jacob Preston and Egan Butcher, if that's just my personal opinion. I think he's also represented the Kiwis as well he's got a bit of international representative history.
I think based on the fact that you originally wanted Katoa between Katoa and Fitzgibbon kind of area, and then I've pushed it down to that Preston Egan area. I think, I'm definitely happy above Preston based on the fact that Preston was a 1 year thing. Again, I know Bulldogs fans will hate that, but that's a bit of a them problem. I think that Nikora, just actually to clarify for Bulldogs fans, Preston will, if he does it again this year, will go into quality, but we need to see it again. I think that's a bit of a middle ground there. And Elliot Whitehead does have a lot of experience that he's still going to do a really quality job there. So we'll put him below Whitehead above Preston.
Sounds good. And also to the Doggies fans, Preston's still the rookie of the year in terms of second rowers. We haven't put anyone higher than him in terms of first-year players. So I think he's probably going to be the peak. I don't think there's any other player we've got coming up who would even challenge him.
Yeah, except for Clay Stars, who will go above him next year. All right, let's go now into the Squeals again. It is Matt Doorey here. For me, I'm probably looking towards the not that great category. I know he did a couple of things, and I'm thinking it's pure Supercoach here, man. I'm thinking pure Supercoach. I know he was okay at the beginning of his tenure when he came in for the Eels last year, I believe, but I, off the top of my head, can't really remember seeing him do much at all for the Eels.
Yeah, absolutely. A bit of a silent assassin. He had 4 starting games at second row, averaged about 70 minutes. He averaged about 10 runs per game, which is about the same as Nikora, same post-contact meters, same run meters, and same tackle. So he almost had a Nikora sort of season when he started at second row. He did have 6 off the bench, though that's something that you need to take into account. Averaged about 24 minutes there, 5 runs per game, 50 run meters, and 9 tackles, which is much lower. I've got him in that not that great category as a response, and I've got him probably around that Dan Russell, Jack Gajewski thing. I think he had a better statistical season than Jack Gajewski, but not Dan Russell. I think Dan Russell in terms of defense and also having played more games starting at second row, he definitely had the advantage there.
Yeah, I think Dan Russell's been that middle ground of the not that great category, and I think it actually moved from Lemuelu to Elliot Whitehead as the middle ground for the job category. I think it actually shifted.
Absolutely.
But yeah, look, I think that Dory, I'm pretty happy with that one, man. So what did you say, above Dan Russell or below Dan Russell?
Just below Dan Russell.
Yeah, I'm not too unhappy with that one, man. Like I said, I don't know a great deal about him, but when I saw him, I didn't see a great deal from that. So I'm happy to put him there. All right, now we go to Maverick Guy here for the Penrith Panthers. This guy's going to go straight into unproven, right?
Yeah, I've got him in unproven. I've got him above D and Jordan Martin. I think that he hasn't debuted yet, of course. So we don't know much about him. He did have a great preseason challenge though. So he does have a bit of potential, and I've heard a bit more about him. Obviously, he's got the MG.
Is he? I was going to say, is he related to Mark?
The son, yeah. So he's definitely got that bloodstream. So you can't. So in that terms, I think he's got a bit more potential. But that's completely off the back of family blood ties and what I've actually seen of him. I haven't actually seen much of Martin and D, to be honest, in terms of stats. So Maverick was definitely one of the better players and one of the shining lights in the preseason challenge last year. Hoping to see a bit more of him next year and hopefully a debut.
100%. Well, there you go. Chuck him straight in there. I just was laughing when you said D because I know that who that's referring to.
Yeah, so I bet my best friend. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, we can't call him DJ though. Can't call him DJ.
No, he doesn't like that.
We'll go to the Rabbitohs now. It is Michael Cheekham, who has been around for quite some time now. Never really cemented himself. Always been here and there. I remember back in the day when he was a real youth product coming through, everyone was like, "Oh, this guy's going to be massive in Supercoach and fantasy. This guy's going to be huge." It just didn't really ever come on. Didn't really get onto the home straight in any kind of menacing position, and just hasn't really lived up to it. So I would be looking into the not that great category. I do think that he did something for the Rabbitohs when he would come on last year, but I definitely think that not that great category is for him.
I think he's definitely not that great category. In terms of where he places, I've got him around that Joe Stimson, Coen Hess vibe. He does provide some good stats. He had 11 starting games at second rower, averaged 11 runs per game, 88 meters, and 30 tackles per game, which was both the runs and tackles up around that average of a normal starting second rower. So he did actually provide a little bit in terms of the basics. Obviously doesn't have that X factor Really low on tackle breaks. Didn't average one per game. Didn't average. He averaged an offload every 3 games as well when he was starting at second row as well. So he doesn't have that X factor about him, which I think slots sort of in with that Joe Simpson vibe. But he definitely did have better stats in terms of runs and tackles.
Yeah. I'm okay chucking him above Stimo and below Coen Hess there. I think that's probably a fine position. Like I said, I saw him do something when he would come off and into that back row, but just hasn't really ever lived up to the potential that we all knew that he did have. But again, still around the system, so better than what I did, that's for sure. But hey, listen, I did play for the Burleigh Bears when I was in the under 15s, so take that for what you will. All right. Well, actually, no, I don't want to associate with the Bears right now because they've gone to the Broncos. Gee whiz. They were the Titans, now the Broncos. So can't talk about it anymore. We'll go to the Roosters now. From Rabbitohs to the Roosters, and it is Naufahu White, who I really only heard for the first time last year. Did get a bit of a crack last year, but is he a young guy or is he just finally getting an opportunity late on? I don't know much about him at all.
Yeah, he's a young 21-year-old from out of New Zealand, tall bloke, 192 centimeters, 106 kilos. He had 8 appearances this season. He actually did play 3 games in 2021. Didn't play in the 2022 season, but yeah, not too much about him. 90 average run meters off the bench, which is pretty decent to be fair. And also averaged a fair few tackles as well, around that 20 mark. At 94% efficiency. So he does have a bit about him. I mean, we've pushed players into that not that great category like Cleese, who's played less games. So I'm happy to give him an opportunity to be in that not that great category. I'd put him off the back of the stats that he's been putting up in terms of run meters is pretty impressive off the bench. 90 run meters, as I mentioned, and that 20 tackles per game. So I'm okay with putting him around that Jackson Topine, Carl Lawton area.
Yeah, I'm okay with that one. I was surprised for a second there because I thought that you were going to put him towards that Cheekham level based on a few of those.
No.
Yeah, I'm okay with that one. Above Torpiner. Yeah, I'd put him above Carl Lawton.
Yep, I'm happy with that. I think Fletcher Baker definitely gets a spot over him in the Roosters when he was at the Roosters. So I wouldn't put him above Fletch.
What about Jed Cartwright?
I still think Jed Cartwright's got a bit more about him.
I'm okay with that one. All right, we'll leave Naufahu White there. Okay, now we're going into the Raiders here, and this guy for me is definitely going straight down proven. My apologies, but I've actually not heard of you before. It is Noah Martin here. Have you heard much about Noah Martin at all?
No, is he the brother of Jordan? They both got the long hair by the looks of it.
Yeah, mate, exactly right. They do actually look quite similar. They do look quite similar.
I would say alphabetically, I'd put him at the back end.
All right, well,
that's purely alphabetically.
Hey, listen, Noah, you got to sort your name out, mate, because that's what's put you at the back end here. But good news for you, Rando. We're on the back straight, baby. We are on the back straight. The last probably 20-odd players. Which is quite funny, back straight last 20. But all right, Noah Martin goes there. And this one's going to help us out too. Oren Keeley. He's going to go straight into down proven for the Dolphins. Have you heard much about Oren?
Yeah, he played a game last year for the Dolphins. He also was a huge talent for the Newcastle Knights as well, an up-and-coming one that everyone was talking about. And Wayne Bennett secured his signature and took him on board with the Dolphins instead, which is a big loss for them. He averaged 4 runs, 36 run meters, only was on the field for 20 minutes. So not much to really prove off the back of him. I think his worth is around that Joe Chan, Brandon Tumeth sort of section. I know it really means nothing, this unproven section. We don't know anything about them. So, but in terms of like the fact that he played a game, the fact that he's got some stats to go off, he's definitely had a bit more impact than Brandon, and but not as much as Joe Chan.
Absolutely. All right.
Definitely keep an eye out on Oren Keeley as the season progresses in 2024.
I got one eye on him for sure. All right, we'll go now into the doggy woof, and we've got Raymond Fatala-Marin here, who I will actually kind of say something that might surprise you. I don't know. I'll hear about it in a second. But I think that in the past, he's been solid for sure. He's been quality in the past. I would actually start to lean towards him being, whether it be at the bottom of the job, very similar to Harawira-Naera, or even in that not that great category. I don't rate him as much as I have in the past. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I'd put him at the top of not that great. I think if he goes to another club, I think he'd be back starting second row, if not off the bench. Kind of a bit like Corey Harawira-Naera when he went from the Bulldogs to the Raiders. I think he's done the job in the past. Last season wasn't his best. When he started second row, he only played average 37 minutes per game, which is extremely low for a starting second rower. I don't know what the hell's going on with him and the Bulldogs. It sounds like some sort of AVO sort of thing where they're not letting him train at points when he was their captain. It's all a bit crazy to me what's going on over there. If I was him, I'd probably just leave the club. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens to RFM because he's a talent. He was a Kiwi.
He was quality at one point in his career.
He was absolutely. So hopefully he finds that again. I don't want to disrespect him by putting anywhere lower. I still think if Faitala Mariner and Jack Williams are in the same team, Faitala Mariner gets the starting spot. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. All right, I agree with that one. We'll chuck him right at the top there of not that great. Okay, Dragons, Ryan Couchman. He played a little bit last year. I think that he's probably going to be going into the not that great category as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got him around the. I'm going to have to put him above. Yeah, Dan Russell area, probably just below Dan Russell because he didn't get that starting spot above him. I still think he's got a bit more talent compared to Matt Doorey. He averaged 30 tackles off the bench, 30 tackles in 38 minutes of football on average in his 5 games off the bench, which is quite incredible. He did have to tank in attack, only 8 runs per game. But still, 38 efforts in 38 minutes of football is quite phenomenal for Ryan Couchman. I think he's got a future ahead of him, but of course, his first season, plenty to prove as we move forward. And of course, just behind Dan Russell. So we'll keep him there.
Happy with that one. Okay, let's go now into Ryan Madison here for the Squeals again. I think he's going to go, and this is the thing, right? He obviously comes off the bench for the most part. We have seen him play in multiple different positions when they've needed 5'8" specifically as well. I think that he is a quality. I think he goes into quality. I think that Ryan Madison does a really phenomenal job there for the Eels when asked upon. I think that he is better off the bench than when he is starting. And especially when you've got the forward pack that the Eels do, you have the luxury of having him off the bench there. But I would be putting him. I think that he, as a whole, I actually do think that he is better than Bryce Cartwright enough to put him in quality, but at the end of the day, I do prefer him off the bench over Bryce Cartwright. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that he's a really underrated player, Ryan Madison. I think his stats are elite in every sense of the word. We look at players who like he started 5 times off the bench at second row. And if you look at it, it was David Fifita, 15 carries per game. Then it was Ryan Madison after that. So
yeah, wow.
he had 14 carries per game. He does definitely tanks in the run meters space, 129 run meters. But he also averaged 43 tackles. Now, if you put the tackles and runs compared with David Fifita had 42 run tackles combined. Ryan Madison had 57.
Yeah, wow.
So his effort is unbelievable.
Hey, no more making them look better than Dave. No more.
Hey, David Fifita, tackle breaks, run meters, post-contact meters, has him covered. More X factor.
Now we're talking.
But Ryan Madison, in terms of the basic run and tackles, he is definitely an elite player, in my opinion. I'm happy to have him below Liam Martin at that top of the quality because we're going to put Liam Martin as the anchor.
I know that you want to put him above Liam Martin, though. That's the funny thing. I know you really do, and I get it. I understand what you're saying. I just know the backlash that would come from putting Ryan Madison above Liam Martin.
They'd be riots in the streets. But I just wanted to note that Ryan Madison, one of the hard workers statistically, both off the bench and starting at second row, always puts his heart in. 43 tackles is absolutely insane to do week in, week out.
Yeah.
And to not only, like we said, we saw Dan Russell 41 tackles per game, but he makes 6 carries per game compared to Ryan Madison, who is making the same amount of runs as David Fifita, who's the top run maker, I guess, of any second rower starting. You got to look into that when you look at these different stats, and the fact that Ryan Madison is matching it with the 43 tackles is quite insane. So that's why I have a high regard for him, but I'm happy to put him at the second top of quality.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I kind of, and no, I'm not going to say I hope, but I would also kind of enjoy to see Liam Martin not have the kind of season. And this sounds like a real dick thing to say, and I don't mean this to be a bad person, but for Liam Martin to not have as good of a season would prove you right in a lot of this, and people will understand you a lot more and how low kind of you put him comparatively to what the general consensus do. So without saying something that makes me sound like a dick, because it's not meant to be like that, Liam Martin not having a successful season will prove that Nene effect, that Papali'i effect in that sense, and prove it right. So I would look forward to seeing if that is the case this year. But I agree with you in regards to Ryan Madison. He definitely should be up there in that top part of quality, which is interesting considering that Bryce Cartwright is a starting back row there. Maddo comes off the bench. I just think that, yeah, obviously off the bench, he does really get to implement himself really, really well when the game is getting tired. Okay, let's go to Scotty Sorensen here for the Benny Panthers. I think he had a great year for the Panthers in 2023. Really came on quite a lot more. Obviously, originally was at the Sharkies, we didn't really see much, and it took a little bit of time to work into this Panthers section. But with that being said, I don't know if I'd put him into the quality section just yet. I think that he's still got a little bit more to prove to me. I know that you Supercoach folk out there can see some massive scores, and I know Rando's probably going to tell me the stats are probably in favor of that. But then again, I also thought that with Moses Leota, and then he shot me down last year. So I would probably put him towards the top end to the job.
I've got him. I have got him in quality. I think he definitely bypasses Finn Diesel, Nanai, Leilua. He's up there with Hudson Young as well. Just taking a look and filtering out all the players that are potentially above him in terms of Young, IPAP, and Maddo. You can kind of see that he's got some talent. This kid Sorensen, who's 29, talent. He does have some talent. He's finally gotten that starting spot. 20 games at starting second row, averaging 71 minutes. He averaged 13 runs per game, 110 run meters, 31 tackles. He averaged more tackles and runs run meters than Hudson Young. He averaged more runs than Isaiah Papali'i. So for me, I've got him between Hudson Young and IPAP. I know it's a big call, but he's just got that statistical side about him where he's starting to really make his straps.
Yeah, maybe I'm thinking too much of his past when he was like at the Sharkies and he wasn't really showing too much. But it did take him a little bit at the Panthers to really prove himself there. Maybe that's why I'm kind of still seeing him as to do the job. And I know that he does get some good stats on the board, especially in 2023. If you take him out of that Panthers, does he do it? I'm not too sure. That's why I guess maybe I would have put him into that top end there. But in the same sense, you can only see him for where he's at. And he's at the Panthers and he's killing it there. So I'd be happy to bump him up as far as I'd still put Hudson Young above him. That's only one spot lower. And that is bumping up quite a decent bit for mine. So would you be unhappy with that?
No, I'm happy with that. I'm happy.
Yeah. All right. We'll put him above Leilua, below Hudson Young. But all right, let's go now into the bottom there of this wheel. Sean Lane here for the Eels, who I don't think he came back from injury and was as great as he has been in the past, but I still think that he's a quality back row man. I don't know if I could put him as high as I previously would have put him, but where would you put? I would assume you're going to put him into the quality section, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at the stats, he kind of puts up the same sort of Scott Sorensen stats, 12 runs per game, 108 meters, more post-contact meters than Scott Sorensen, but 8 less tackles in defense. He only played 8 games last season, starting at second row, which was a lot lower than before. I'd have him probably, I think that he did drop off a fair bit. I think I'm around that Nanai Kafusi level in the quality section.
I'd put him I originally had him as above Sorensen, and I think that's based off of his history too. Then he had that injury. I know you're higher on Sorensen. I'm lower on Sorensen. You're lower on Sorensen. I'm higher on you're lower on Sean Lane. I'm higher on Sean Lane. I think that maybe we put him above Nene below Leilua. Would you agree with that?
I'm happy to put him next to Scott Sorensen if you want.
Yeah, I don't know. I just still see him as a guy that I still like him at the Parramatta Eels. I think this is a big year for the Eels. I think they had a lot of disruption at the club last year, and including Sean Lane's obviously injury and coming back from it and whatnot. So I think that this is a big year for him. But I guess it's the same thing with Luciano Leilua as well, to be honest with you. So kind of just put them on top of each other. But I do think that the past of Sean Lane probably gives him that little bit of an advantage. But yeah, there we go. All right, let's now go into Sean Bloor for the Melbourne Storm. Obviously was at the Tigers and now has switched with Justin Olam, and Sean Bloor is at the Storm. There's an opportunity for him to really kind of put himself on the chance to be in the back row alongside Katoa. With that being said, they do really believe in Trent Loiero there that we'll probably get into in just a few, well, we will get into in a few moments. Haven't seen everything from Sean Bloor just yet. Do think that he has the ability to get to a Katoa level, but I think for the time being, it's probably going to go towards that bottom area of do the job, would you say? Or would you say top end of not that great?
I would put him in that not that great. I don't think he's really...
Yeah.
Unfortunately, injury has really prevented him from really reaching that high, but I think we're going to see him do a little bit of an Elise Katoa sort of situation in the future. He actually put up worse stats than Michael Cheekham this season in terms of defense and attack. So for me personally, I've got him around that Coen Hess area. Definitely more potential than Michael Cheekham, so I'd just give him a benefit of the doubt there. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm looking at him.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do at the Storm. I'm okay with definitely putting him above Cheekham, below Coen Hess. Wouldn't even be upset putting him above Coen Hess there, but I do think Coen Hess does have that experience over him, so we do know that he can provide something. But there is a lot more excitement surrounding Sean Bloor than Coen Hess. But we'll chuck Sean below Coen, and we'll just wait and see what happens in 2024 with the Storm. Because again, he doesn't even have the guaranteed spot there in Melbourne. Because I know how high they are on the guy we'll talk about in a second. Okay, we get to Simi Sasangi for the Raiders. I don't know much about him. I know his name has been on team list for a while, especially I think he was at the Knights, if I'm not mistaken. But for me, is he unproven or is he not that great?
He's played 16 games. He didn't play in 2023, I believe. He did pick up an injury at the start of the season, which prevented him. So I think that does he go back into the unproven stage? Potentially. But he's probably at the lower end of not that great. But that's purely because, once again, injury has played a part there. Missed out on 2023, unfortunately. So wasn't really in the mold.
I'd be happy to put him in unproven regardless. Even though we put like Cleese and whatnot with 15 games and he's played 16, I think that playing 16 and then having that injury as well might really be impacting our thought process of him. Can you really remember much from when he played those 16 games? I don't think there would have been.
There's not too many highlights of it at all, to be honest. 86 tackle percentage, averaging around 10 tackles per game, 55 run meters per game. So pretty low stats all around.
We'll put him into the not that great category and pretty low stats all around. Would you be looking towards maybe that below Nafahu White, or are you looking Torpenny?
I'm giving Torpenny a bit of a head start here, to be honest. I think I put him just above Chris Lewis.
Yeah. All right, we'll drop him there. Okay, we get to a guy here that you've been really high on the past. Obviously, that was in the centre department with Talakai. Did we do centres one year?
I'm not too sure. We might have. We've done a lot of positions, to be fair.
We have, yeah.
Maybe the first year was centres. That
could be right, because I remember you were really high on Talakai. And yeah, really, really high on Talakai, if I'm not mistaken. It could be somebody else. But anyway, we're going to see Super Talakai here with the Sharkies, who obviously has been their starting centre for a while now. I guess the hype has died down on him, post Morgan Harper. And now he's more than likely going to be starting on the bench for Kyle Ero. And now we're going to see him kind of revert back to the back rower that we always thought. I think that back row and a centre experiment is dying away. I think teams are starting to kind of shy away from it, especially after when Justin tried to play David Fifita in the centres, and that didn't work out. And I think that we've really started to see that Sisa Talakai has now started to shy away from that quality as well. Not as bad as we'll make him out to be, but definitely not the quality player that he once was. I think in regards to back row, I don't know how to kind of say in back row because I haven't seen it for a long time. Has he actually played a game in the back row for the Sharkies?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he started his career as a back rower, to be fair. I'm just getting out the exact games that he has played in said position. Because it'd be interesting. I thought he had a really good season at centre this year. He was the top try. He made the most assists by a centre ever in the NRL history. This year, I thought that in terms of post-contact meters and run meters, he was great as well. Set up Ronaldo Mulatalo on more than one occasion, which was really, really good. Just checking his second row stats. He played 14 games there. He last played in 2022. And yeah, just nothing in particular there in terms of what he can provide.
I think he'll probably go into the do the job category, you reckon?
Probably do the job category based off what he's done at centre. In terms of second row, yeah, not much at all to really go off. He can average around 150 plus meters, which is pretty insane.
That's quality.
And if he can get to that level again, that gets the quality, but he hasn't played position in 2 years. So I would probably put him around, I'd probably definitely have him probably around that Elise Katoa sort of vibe.
We're putting up there. I was kind of hovering around the Lemuelu area, but I'm okay based off of his centre and also based off of the number that you just provided. Yeah, it's a hard one. I think that you guys listening and watching have to kind of forgive us on this one. I'd be happy to put him right next to Katoa.
Yeah, I'm happy with that one.
Yeah, we'll put him there. A big question mark, though. Big question mark there for Talakai going into 2024. All right, bang. We get to... we're on to the final page. We've only got this many to go, guys. We've only got this many to go.
10 to go. Fuck yeah.
All right. Sitili Tupunua for the Sydney Roosters. I think that he is... is he just coming back? Or what happened to him in 2023? Was he wasn't Super League, or was he injured or something?
Yeah, so he did an ACL injury at the end of 2022, and so that kind of ruled him out for a fair few games. He only got on for 6 in the end in 2023, but fuck, he was an attacking weapon before he came off that. He was really good. Shame to see him get injured, and he just hasn't been able to hit that height. He started 2 games of second row, averaged 5 runs per game, 26 tackles. So not really inputting himself where he wants to be. He can do the job. He's proven it before. I definitely have him probably around the Lemuelu sort of region.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that one, to be honest with you. I'd probably put him above him. I would even put him above Jackson Ford, and I would still put him above Jaden Sewer.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I think Egan Butcher definitely gets the spot at the moment. I think he's definitely cemented himself.
I think we'll go back a couple of years. Go back a couple of years and probably see Tupunua above him. But I think that he has a lot to prove this year to kind of get back above a guy like Egan Butcher, who did have a very solid 2023. So we'll put him below Butcher, above Jaden Sewer. Suya Wong for the Roosters. Josh Wong here had a great back end of 2023. Obviously still a young guy here. Did he play enough games in 2023? Because I feel like it was only the back end, and I don't even know if he played more than 5 games.
He played 10 games. He played 7 games. Starting at second rower, averaged 8 runs per game, 33 tackles, which is above the average of starting second rower tackle. So he was great in defense, particularly in that Sharks game where he had to defend at center in that final, which was absolutely insane. I think his ceiling's really high. I've got him do the job. I've got him probably around that Waddell, Lukey, Tuolungi, probably around Tuolungi area at the moment for do the job. I think that he's going to be something special in 2024.
Yeah, I hate to put him in this is why labels are this is why the labels are just there to give us a bit of a reference, guys, to be completely honest with you, because Josh Wong isn't going to do the job. He is a quality player, but for this list, you kind of have to. That's why we usually look at that 20 game mark. But I do feel like, we'll put him. Yeah, for the time being, we'll put him above Waddle. I think that you put him above John Lucas. Yeah, I think there's some massive raps on him, and I think that he could really do some big things. So we'll put him above Lucas, below Piakura.
Yeah, that sounds good.
But again, hate the labels. Just hate the labels, to be honest with you. Okay, let's go now into Teague Wilton for the Sharkies. Not as high on him as other people are, to be completely honest with you. I'm not as high as other people are on Teague Wilton. I don't think that his spot is guaranteed and locked up there at the Sharkies either. I think that, yeah, I'm not too sure if his spot is completely locked up there. I would be looking towards the do the job section.
I've got him up there in the do the job section. Pretty high actually. He averaged in the 17 games he started at second row. He averaged 12 runs per game, 115 run meters, 34 tackles per game as well, which all three were above average for a starting second rower.
I know why I don't rate him as highly. It's because that Rabbitohs game, there was a moment that I got really angry at. And I don't know if my heart has ever been able to think back because my mum's a Sharks fan. Yes. And I was really, really annoyed. He missed a tackle in that Rabbitohs Sharkies game a couple of years ago, and it was so bad and lazy, I lost it on stream. That's probably why. So you continue, but I'm happy to put him where you want to put him.
That is fair. And to be fair, he has been put up with Matt Moylan as well, and they've really been found out in defence last year. And that's why he has been on the outer, not really cementing that second row spot. Is just because of his defensive decisions. In attack, though, he's doing great. And he is still making 34 tackles per game, mind you. It's not like he's hiding away from tackles and missing them. He's getting involved in tackles and just missing a fair few. We see the same stuff happening with hookers as well. Reid Marnie, Happy Coruscant among the players there. So I think statistically, number-wise, he puts it up, and I would put him around the Schuster Whitehead sort of region, but definitely a bit of a ceiling for him as well. I definitely put him above Nikora.
I was considering putting him above Talakai there, based on the fact that we've probably seen more from Teague Wilton. But if you want to put him back there, I'm okay with that. It's funny how you seemed higher than me, and yet I was kind of putting him up there. But if you want to put him back to what, Schuster, above Schuster?
I could put him. I think that Schuster and him could probably provide about the same. Obviously, two different games, but about the same sort of impact in terms of that Schuster obviously has his errors, and so does Teague Wilton, but they're both really good in attack.
Yeah, my brain's turning off right now.
Mine's loading. We're reaching the 3-hour mark, mate. Many tennis games are done by this point.
Yeah, no, we have reached the 3-hour mark. We're 3 hours and 2 minutes in. So we're baseball territory now. We're baseball territory. We're getting to Ashes territory now. I just realized, like when I was listening to you just then, I was like, my brain is literally turning off right now, and I'm just staring into the distance. But all right, so what, we put him above Schuster, below Fitzgibbon, or do you want to put him? No, you wanted to put him below.
I'm happy there. Let's leave him there. Between Fitzgibbon and Schuster.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, now we go to the Dragons. It is Tommy Eisenhuth now, who was obviously at the Melbourne Storm. This is a guy that I never really rated when he was at the Melbourne Storm. I think that he is like an okay player. I think that if you're looking at him and just looking at the field, you're saying probably do the job. But I don't think that in this category system, I think he's in the not that great area.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 15 games off the bench, averaging about 35 minutes, 22 tackles, 6 runs per game, 60 run meters is about dead on average for a bench player, which you can kind of put in that not that great category. I've got him in between Billy Burns and Dan Russell. I think he gets a start over Dan Russell purely because of his Melbourne Storm credentials.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I have him there. I do think that he does offer a bit. He does. You think you put him above Billy?
I think I'd put him above Billy just because of those Melbourne Storm credentials, like you just said.
Okay, easy. Done. We'll put him there. But I think he's definitely, I mean, moving to the Dragons, this is the slippery slope to the end of the career, I guess. He's coming down the slide. He's got his hands up.
You know what's funny? You look at that area of not that great. You've got Couchman Dragons. You've got Dan Russell Dragons. You've got Murdoch-Masila not far behind. You got Billy Burns, who was at the Dragons, and now you got Tom Eisenhuth at the Dragons. God help you, Dragons.
Just not that great category. And I think they know that they don't have the best amount of back rowers or forwards, really. I think Blake Laurie's probably the highlight And Jack Bird's not too bad as well.
Jack DeBellin's solid in the lock.
Yeah, Jack DeBellin good too.
Yeah,
absolutely. But everyone else,
that's a dodgy one that they're outdone there. At least Jaden Stewart's doing something for you up top. But all right, let's now go into Tommy Gilbert for the Dolphins, who obviously was injured last year, which does suck. Plays a bit of back row, plays a bit of lock. A real tough unit here, Tommy Gilbert. I'd be putting him toward the upper end of do the job. I think that he is a really tough player to watch. I think he really does a job for them. Obviously got into Queensland as well, so you could make the argument for quality. And I honestly would not be against putting him into quality, but I do still think that he's probably... Actually, do you have him in quality? I don't know. I'm interested in hear what you get to say here, because I do think that if I'm looking at him, I do think he's a quality player, but I don't know if necessarily on this tier list we're putting him there just yet. But I personally would consider it.
I think he's doing the job. I think he's really coming into his own. He had a great start to the Dolphins season before he did his ACL injury. He was really killing it. He averaged 40 tackles per game, averaged 118 run meters as well. So he's really getting into his groove. I've got him probably above Teague Wilton, but just below Lachlan Fitzgibbon, around that area. I think had he had the full season, he'd probably be up in the quality section. But I think he's around that area. Yeah,
the injury does hurt him quite a lot there. In a draft, I'm taking him above a few of the guys above him, but I'd be happy to bump him down to... I'd still probably put him above Fitzgibbon. I'd put him above Talakai personally, but if you want to drop him further, so where were you looking specifically?
I'm looking around that same area. I've got him just behind Fitzgibbon. I think that as a lock, he's definitely a better player. I think second row...
I'm also looking at thinking lock,
Yeah, I think second row is a bit more interesting. Just looking at how many games he has run around at second row. He played 25 games, majority of his career there. So, it's a tough one. But he did not play for the Dolphins, I believe. Did he play for the Dolphins?
No, I think he was locked at the Dolphins, but he was back row for
the Dolphins, back row. Yeah, there you go. So, he's got the credentials there. Let's see a few more games at back row for him.
Yeah, the injury is what really hurt him. But again, I agree with you, and that's what I said before. If it wasn't for the injury, quality for sure for me. I think that it'll be a big one after the end of 2024. Okay, we've got 6 more to go here. Tony Mataele for the Eels. I think this is a big bang boom, quick smack up in unproven.
Yep, alphabetical order at the back.
We're back to the alphabetical order. Well, guess what? Here's another alphabetical order for you. Tony Suka from the Tigers. You have to do it because my brain's gone right now.
He's at the end. He's at the end. He's at the end.
Is he at the end?
TS,
the
TS,
Y. Yeah. No, because Toni for Tony Mataele and then Tony for Tony Suka.
Yeah.
So
he can only blame his mum for that one.
Gee whiz, Tony's mum. Get it going. You know what I'm saying? Actually, this is a very...
Really cost his son there.
This is a debatable kind of discussion point, so we're going to move on. We love you, Tony's mum. Actually, definitely should move on now. Trent Loiero from the Melbourne Storm. Is there starting back row there for the Melbourne Storm? I don't see it personally. I really don't. I'm not a massive fan of him. Interested to see what the stats say on him, but I'm just not really on Craig Bellamy's level. But then again, I'm not Craig Bellamy, so who am I to say that? But what are your thoughts on Trent Loiero?
I thought he did a great job jumping into starting second rower. He played all 26 games in the starting role. He averaged 12 runs per game, 100 meters per game, and 34 tackles, all above the average starting second rower stats. So I kind of think that he did the job and a bit more. I have him around that Jackson Ford, Lemuelu sort of region for do the job. I think he's above Piakura. He's proven now he's a solid starter. He'll start most of 2023. 2024, at least have the starting spot above Sean Bloor, and he might even keep Sean Bloor at bay because I thought he did pretty well when he did start at second row. Obviously, doesn't have that X factor ability, but he just definitely does certain things right, which is good.
Maybe that's what when I look at back row is obviously like my biggest intention, and that's why it's good to have you on because obviously you have the stats there. But my biggest thing with back rowers is I like X Factor, so that's maybe why I don't see it personally. But, like I admitted to, I'm not Craig Bellamy, and I'm not going to pretend to be Craig Bellamy. but one day I'll come for your job. But no, I'm happy to put Trent there. So what we're putting on Jackson Ford, below Jaden Silver?
No, just below Lemuelu.
Below, below
I think
Lemuelu.
Lemuelu, if he was at the Storm, just gets the start. Just gets the start.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. All right, now we've got the final three, the trio. Tyson, and there's at least a good couple of discussion points here. Tyson Frizzell for the Newcastle Knights. I think that he's still going to go straight into the quality section. Obviously, still playing Origin. Not Australia anymore, but he is still playing Origin, and I do think he's still in the quality section and has the yardage over a few of the guys there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got him in between Huddy and Scotty Soz here. He played 22 games of starting second row last season, averaged 11 runs per game, 110 meters per game, and 31 tackles there, all above average. Tackle breaks as well, 3.18. He's up there with Liam Martin in terms of tackle breaks in that sort of category as well, and 6 line breaks as well for the old fella. He's definitely not tiring out. He was a big impact player for the Knights, especially when they did lose Lachlan Fitzgibbon towards the back end there. I think he's still a very strong quality player. Does he miss out on that X factor compared to Huddy Young? I think they're about almost the same player. I think Hudson Young will be the same as Tyson Frizzell when he comes to his age.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've got Tyson Frizzell. I would still probably put Frizzell above Hudson Young, but I'm okay to leave him below Hudson Young, above Scotty Sorensen for sure. I just think maybe the yardage over Hudson, but I'll agree with you. So
yeah, I'm happy to bring him up above Huddy. I'm happy to bring him above IPAP as well. To be honest, I think he's definitely done more in the game, and he still continues to do more. Just represented Tonga as well.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, we'll put him above his IPAP, below John Bateman there. Final two here, and this is actually kind of another one that I was just thinking about with Viliami Kikau. For the Bulldogs, is that Viliami Kikau is that another one who, had that big time year with the Panthers, like a Jeremiah Nene compared to Fifita. Viliami was being compared with Fifita. You've got Liam Martin currently being compared with Fifita. Those kind of one is I believe. Viliami Kikau is another one who is now at the Doggies and doesn't have the same production. One, because he was injured last year, but also when he wasn't injured, he still got Matt Burton and Toby Sexton there rather than Jerome Luai and Nathan Cleary. I don't know. It's just really tough to rank where Villy is right now because he has been elite in the past, not elite now. The stocks have definitely dropped on him. I'd still have to put him into the quality section. I have to, but where in that is just an absolute dartboard throw for me. And I think that's probably going to be the same with you. But let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, I definitely think that he's got a bit more X factor than Sean Lane. Last season was definitely a very disappointing one for Viliami Kikau with the move. Obviously being injured, not fantastic. But when he did start at second row, he only averaged 8 runs per game, 29 post-contact meters for a big fella like him. You expect him to get those PCMs up, and 26 tackles as well. And we know defense isn't really his strong point. His tackle breaks, he averaged half the tackle breaks as Tyson Frizzell and Liam Martin. Offload-wise, he was a bit more dangerous as an offloader, but still just not the same that we saw there from great Viliami. So I definitely have him. I'll probably give him the benefit of doubt over. Yeah, in between Sorensen and Lane.
Yeah, that's where I've dropped him there. I think that it's so hard with the Bulldogs, man. It's so hard to see kind of how he goes by the end of this year. But I think that he can definitely put himself back up into elite with the enormous talent that he does have. But it's just such a confusing time, especially coming off an injury, off that Bulldogs year, changing teams. It's just a bit of a crapshoot with him. So we're putting him below Sorensen, above Lane, yes?
Yeah, happy with that.
All right, we've got there. My friend, we have got there. We've got one last player. And it's Zac Hosking here, who was at the Penrith Panthers and is now at the Canberra Raiders. A guy who I think a lot of people were really excited to see at the Panthers last season. Kind of in a similar place to Garner, but actually got more of a crack than Garner, obviously. I do think that he's going to go into the do the job category. Would have liked to have seen more from him. There is a little bit of X factor there, but also concerned about him losing any kind of positivity from going from the Panthers now to the Raiders, and with those Raiders spots being locked up for the time being too. So be interesting to see where you think to put him. But I'm thinking do the job mid-range to lower.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking at around that Nikora, Jacob Preston sort of area here. He averaged 10 runs per game, 87 meters and 34 tackles. Obviously the tackles over and above, but he also did get that starting spot as well for the Panthers, which, you know, is a fucking big role. That's the best team in the comp, has been for the last 4 years. So you can't discredit that. In that sense, I would have him just above Jacob Preston for what he's done and achieved this year at that second row spot. But definitely Jacob Preston I'll
say on that is that, again, I'll put it back on you. If you've got a draft right now and the two guys on the board is Preston and Zac Hosking, who are you taking?
It is true. I'd probably take Preston in a draft, probably.
Yeah, and I think that, look, one of them's at the Dogs and one of them's at the Panthers, and we're having this conversation about kind of the similarity, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like if they're similar position, like if they're similar, you probably lean towards the Dog player there, but just because he doesn't have Nathan Cleary, he doesn't have Luai, he doesn't have, Dylan Edwards, he doesn't have all these absolute superstars around him comparatively to, Zac Hosking, who does have him, if you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely. I think that's a fair point.
Mate, we did it. We've absolutely slapped this. There is
3
no
hours.
way.
I think that's a record.
Mate, this is definitely the record. We've gone for 3 hours and 15 minutes. This is absolutely the record right now. Guys, there's no way that any of you can complain that we haven't done everything possible. You name me another place that they're doing what we're doing. But before we do jump off here, we do this every time. What's one player that you think people will bite back on that they think should be higher? And what's one player that you think that people will think should be lower? As in general consensus.
General consensus, I think we'll get plenty of fight back about Liam Martin not being a lead player. I think that would be the first one off the list. A few barking mad Panthers fans there.
Yeah.
In terms of players that should be lower, I reckon that Bryce Cartwright might shake a few people up. I think a lot of people wouldn't like to see him up as high as he is. I think that's probably one of the big ones. Luciano also pretty close by as well.
Yeah, I reckon Luciano will be the one that people will bite back on there, even though, like, again, they listen to what we said, listen to what you said. I agree with you. I'm happy with that one. But as a general consensus, people will bite back on Luciano. There's no question that people are going to cry about Liam Martin. That's just a fact. But again, go back and have a listen to the spiel that Rando gave because it actually makes sense. But that's the point. People usually just click to the end and go, oh my God, why they did this? And it's like they didn't actually watch it. So yeah, look, overall, man, we've been here cracking down, and I'm happy with it. I'm sure you're happy with it. Let us know kind of where everyone can find you on Random Stats Guy.
Yeah, absolutely. At Random Stats Guy on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and soon to be a website as well. We're just getting that through the graph. So plenty of stuff to look forward to in season 2024. Hope to look forward to it. And I think we're looking to team up as well, Blaze, on a few live streams as the season goes on for some Sunday Arvo chat.
Absolutely, man. It should be good. I was about to actually mention that just at then as well, that we might be getting the old rando on for a game or two here and there, especially when obviously I'm in a Titans game. You guys can rip into him during the game there. But no, we appreciate you for coming on, man. But there we go. We're wrapped up here for the day, guys. So, like I said, smack that like button, subscribe if you're new around here. We're doing this for every single position, so it's a great little thing that we do every preseason that gets our minds right back into it. My mind is completely fried right now. But, we'll be back again for the next one very, very soon. But all right, guys, thanks for watching. Catch you later. See ya.